No.
B, can you guys, Dan, can you hear us up there? Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. We're just going to get started now and wanted to make sure the sound was good. B, nice to see you. Thank you for your email this morning. What are we going to do? We're going to talk about that in May. What are we going to do? Hi, Dan.
Okay.
Good
Hi.
to see you. Welcome, everybody, to our April meeting. We got slightly different, sort of changed the format, which I'm going to describe thanks to the preparation here by Diana and Alex. So we know what's going on today. Again, trying a slightly different format. We're going to use a different procedure for the conduct of today's meetings. The goal is to make our meetings more efficient with the addition of HTFC to an already crowded agenda of authorities meetings on the same day. We have been finding, I think everybody's noticed this, that our meetings have been running long and the business of certain agencies has been rushed. More than once I've had to apologize because we haven't been able to really thoroughly, discuss projects and proposals and actions that come towards the end of the meeting, particularly on HTFC items. So, in the sense that this isn't really fair to the staff who've done all this hard work, or to the boards because they don't get a chance to really thoughtfully consider these items, we're making this change. And so we have postponed first the MBBA TSFC meeting to May, and we can do that because that's a meeting where we look at the financial statements. They're going to be ready for that meeting, not ready for today. So that was the main business of those agencies, and we don't need to have them meet today, so they'll meet again in May, next month. So we're going to open up HTFC and take up all the HTFC business, and then this will allow us to address HTFC matters, we hope, in an orderly and reasonable manner, not rushed. And then we'll take up HFA and AHC matters separately from a SONYMA. This will also allow our SONYMA board members a little more time before they arrive at our meeting. I know Dave at least already said thank you, because he has to get up very, very early to be here by 9 o'clock. And I suspect other SONYMA board members may appreciate that. They've been invited to join us at 10, by the way. And so then we'll finish the meeting with SONYMA, and we will try not to treat SONYMA items the way we've treated HTFC items, where we end up rushing through them. So we're going to try this. Thank you to the team, especially Ruth Ann, who had this idea, for today, and see how it goes, and see, frankly, how all of you feel about it. Also, just for our notes, we're hoping to have some special guests. Of course, all our meetings like this are, of course, public meetings, but in this case, some students of Director Miller's, Professor Miller's, in double duty. She's invited some of her students from one of her classes. We'll see if they come up. We will welcome them accordingly. And I'm very pleased to turn things over to Diana, who's going to set us up for, procedurally in this new order.
Great. So first thing, I note that Jesse Olzak, representing the Director of the Division of the Budget, and Christopher Curtis, representing the Commission of Taxation and Finance, are participating in the meeting via video conference from the New York State Division of Budget Conference Center at the Capitol Building in Albany. And B is participating from the Syracuse Regional Office on 620 Erie Boulevard. Notice of these locations has been made public, and the public has the right to attend and observe the proceedings from these locations. I ask for a motion to open the HFA, HTFC, and AHC meetings.
So moved.
Second.
I will now ask for individual votes from each of the HFA, HTFC, AHC board member. Chairman Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Visnakis?
Aye.
Mr. Olzak?
Aye.
Mr. Curtis?
Aye.
Ms. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre?
Aye.
And Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Great. I ask for a motion from the HFA and AHC audit committees and governance committees.
Ken?
I'm waiting for the page.
Oh. Aye.
Committee. It's crazy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion.
You make a motion, okay.
Ruth Ann.
No. Jesse or Chris?
Jesse or
Second.
Chris? Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now ask for individual votes from each of the HFA and AHC audit and governance committee members. Chairman Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Olzak?
Aye.
Mr. Curtis?
Aye.
I will ask for a motion for the HTFC governance committee.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
You. I will now ask for individual votes from each HTFC governance committee member.
Aye.
Mr. Curtis?
Aye.
Mr. Olzak?
Aye.
I ask for motion for the HFA Finance and Program Committee.
So moved.
Second,
Okay.
Second.
I will now ask for individual votes from the HFA Finance and Program Committee members.
Aye.
Mr. Olzak,
Aye.
Chairman Snoskas.
Aye.
We will begin with the HTFC meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Pull up our board book here. It's only, it's only 356 pages today. Lots of materials. And as always, a terrific job by the staff in preparing all of this. The first item on today's agenda is the transcript of the board and committee meetings held on March 9th, a month ago. The transcript shall be deemed approved, absent corrections from members or directors. Any comments on the transcripts or the notes from our meetings in March? I'll say again, there's very, very well prepared with lots of detail and very helpful to read through. Thank you to the team for doing that. Number 2, resolution of authorizing an increase to a community investment fund award for Help Development Corp. And this is going to be, who's presenting?
Mr. Hebner, he's in Albany.
We're going to Albany for this. Looking around the table.
It's a quick trip. Good morning. This is a request for a $1.3 million increase to a Community Investment Fund award to Help Development Corporation to cover cost increases that are associated with the non-residential portion of the Park Place Vital Brooklyn project. 15 seconds, Mr. Chairman.
Wow.
Yeah.
We love it. Diana?
Okay, now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing an increase to a Community Investment Fund award for Help Development Corporation. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
All right, thanks, everybody. Number 3, a resolution authorizing community development block grant CARES Act awards. And it looks like we're getting Crystal to this. Yeah.
Good morning. This month we do not have new awards. We're just advancing one request for a small award increase. The request is to increase the existing award to the town and village of East Rochester by just over $39,000 to $141,435. The increase is to address unexpected expenses in the purchase of a van for a senior center. Full details are in the memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Crystal. Any questions on item 3? If not, Diana, let's do it.
Now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing Community Development Block Grant CARES Act awards. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Let's go to number 4, Diana. A resolution authorizing community development block grant economic development program awards. Number 4.
This month, we're seeking approval to award $300,000 in CDBG microenterprise funding for Greene County. This will support their existing local microenterprise grant program. Happy to answer any questions.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Diana?
Now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing Community Development Block Grant Economic Development Program awards. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Let's do another one. Resolution authorizing, this is number 5, the Land Bank Initiative Phase 2 awards. Back to Crystal. Good soundtrack.
50 million was included in last year's budget to support this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. 50 million was included in last year's budget to support the services and expenses of land banks. In January, we launched a second request for applications for what we were referring to as the Land Bank Initiative Phase 2 to fund capital activities such as acquisition, demolition, building stabilization, and rehab. We have reviewed the applications received and we're requesting approval to award and enter into grant agreements with 19 land banks for awards totaling just over 23 million.
I have one quick question.
Yes,
Yeah.
80.
Is
Please.
this for operational support also, or just to go through their buildings?
So Crystal, could you hear that? Was just for operational support, or is this also for buildings?
Good question. So we issued a first phase of funding in the fall for all of the land banks where we provided a 3-year renewable award for operational support. So all 26 of the land banks have existing contracts for operations, and then this is kind of moving into the capital activities.
Crystal, I'll just say that as one of the original skeptics of the land bank law 10 years ago or so, I am so glad you proved me wrong. And to see this funding here and every meeting where you present more grants to more land banks and the success of the program, it's really impressive.
I just want to say too, I agree. I think this is like it was just in Atlanta, and what they've done in terms of a housing agency supporting land acquisition, where later they would develop in communities, and being proactive is like massively impactful in community. And we've seen that in New York State. So I think just if we can get more money into this, not making more land.
Right.
That's true. Crystal, is this the end of the 50 million, or is there still funds left that will come back to the board?
There are still funds remaining. We intend to do another request for applications for capital activities probably later this year or early next year.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Again, congratulations to you and the team. This is just it's really successful and really important. Let's make it real. Diana,
Now
please.
before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing Land Bank Initiative Phase 2 awards, assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Number 6 is a resolution authorizing an amendment to a DRI, or Downtown Revitalization Initiative Award, for the Pennsylvania Yankee Theater Company, Incorporated. Number 6.
We are requesting approval to increase an existing DRI award by $330,000. This additional funding is available for reallocation from other unsuccessful DRI projects and will result in a new grant agreement totaling $1,330,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Is this in Penn Yan? Yeah, because it's called.
Yes.
It's also called Penn Yan. Yeah, great. Lovely community. That Penn, yeah, it's Yankee.
Yes, Pennsylvania Yankees.
Oh, it's not. But it's not in Penn Yan, New York, is it?
Yes.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Get
it
it?
is.
Now, Penn Yan is not the town. It's a.
You are an
You gotta know the
encyclopedia.
town. It's a
New York.
beautiful town.
Is there any part of New York you have not
But I
visited?
didn't know anything about the theater company. All right. Any more questions or comments on this?
Every
Penn Yan?
hamlet.
Everyone should be encouraged to visit Penn Yan, New York, by the way. One of the jewels of the Finger Lakes.
Agreed.
Let's make it happen there, Diana.
Now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing an amendment to a downtown revitalization initiative awarded for the Pennsylvania Yankee Theater Company. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board. All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
7 is a resolution authorizing an affordable home ownership opportunity program award for the Camber Property Group. And this is not Crystal. Who's doing this one?
I think Madeline.
Madeline?
It's actually me.
No.
I saw
Everyone,
her.
I'm Thomas.
Thomas.
I'm the new director of the Affordable Homeownership Opportunity Program
Great.
And we're-
When did you start?
in January.
Welcome.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming today.
Great, and I'll be quick with this. This is our first project that we're bringing under this program. It's $11.6 million to support the creation of 58 cooperative units across 2 buildings in Soundview in the Bronx. We're lending alongside Enterprise Community Loan Fund and New York City HPD's Open Door program. And the units will be affordable to households making between 65% and 80% of AMI. Happy to answer any questions about this project or about the Affordable Homeownership Opportunity Program in general. You'll be seeing hopefully a lot more of these.
Any questions for Thomas on this?
It's great to see the unit makeup is 2 and 3%, or like almost 80%, which I think is great because in terms of creating new, that we don't see a lot of that. That's affordable. So that's great.
Great. I'm sure it has nothing to do with this project because it is Camber and Rick Groper. And I think we pause and remember the tragic fire in the Bronx in that multifamily building, 2 winters ago. There was a Groper, Camber project as well. So I guess Canberra continues to move forward, right, and develop projects. Massive amount of litigation.
I'm sure it's still.
Yeah.
It's the same, just to note, it's the same developer. Of someone with otherwise a terrific reputation, I'd say. Okay, any questions or comments for Thomas? Let's do it.
Okay, now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing an affordable home ownership opportunity program award for the Canberra Property Group. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thanks, everyone.
The
Good,
motion
thank
is carried and the resolution adopted. Thank you, Thomas.
Great. Let's go to 8, the resolution authorizing an amendment to a Legacy City Access Program award for AIK Property Group LLC. Madeline's going to do this one, I think.
They always have that pause before they.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. This is just a request to approve a change in the name of the entity. AIK Development is the developer, but there's just going to be a single purpose entity formed in order to actually execute the project. So this is just an approval, a request to approve that.
Sounds reasonable. Anybody have any concerns?
I think CPC's the lender here. So
You're going to
we can
recuse?
do our thing.
All right.
Okay, we got no problem today.
We're fine with that. Very good. Thank you. Diana?
Okay, now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing an amendment to a Legacy City Access Program award for AIK Property Group LLC. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, and I note that you're recused. Sadie is recused. Okay, the motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Terrific. Let's go to 9. It's a resolution approving the transfer of housing choice vouchers from the town of Mamaroneck to the Housing Trust Fund Corporation.
It's going to be Dan
And
and
back to Dan. I
Morning,
think.
everybody. Can you hear me?
Wow. Good morning.
Okay, great. Good morning. So, New York State has a little over 150 public housing authorities across the state, a lot of which are local town and village public housing authorities. And every once in a while, one of them decides it's no longer financially worth it to administer a voucher program. And when that happens, HUD often taps us to take over those vouchers. So that's what's happening here. And we will be assuming these 653 vouchers and making them part of our Westchester County program.
Well, sounds reasonable. Good thing if they're not going to be used. Questions, concerns? Diana?
Now before the HTFC members is a resolution approving the transfer of housing choice vouchers from the town of Mamaroneck to the Housing Trust Fund Corporation. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I did have one quick question. I apologize. I didn't ask before. Dan, can they still only be used in Mamaroneck, or are they now available broadly to the county?
That was my question.
Yeah, I heard that. What will happen is we will exhaust their existing waiting list. And when the waiting list is gone, the vouchers will be absorbed into the larger countywide program. But yes, they can use those vouchers anywhere in the county.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, going back, let's just, assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor?
I have
Do you
a question now.
Okay.
Yeah. So they can only be used in the county. They can't be used statewide. Is that correct?
No, they can, housing choice vouchers by definition are portable. So really, they can be used anywhere in the country.
For our purposes,
Well,
what is
coming
our,
back to HTFC, we're not likely to use them in Omaha or something. We could, I suppose. But...
No, but I want to know what's happening in the Mamaroneck with affordable housing.
Oh, that's a longer discussion.
I mean, why is Mamaroneck giving these up?
But, yeah.
Oh, Dan, do you want to talk a little about that? Why this is happening?
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
Oh, do you just want to say a little more about why this is happening?
I mean, I don't have specific details. I can get more information, but generally what happens is usually a lot of the villages and towns just decide it's not financially worth it anymore. You get an admin fee per voucher, so the larger your voucher program is, the more financially viable it generally is. It's an economy of scale. So a lot of times the smaller programs just decide it's easier to let the state do it. I can get more information on this particular circumstance, though, if you want it.
That sounds like a likely. It sounds like a likely explanation. Program's too small.
It's a manpower issue.
Right. It's a staff.
It's hard to hear the main boardroom. I don't know what happened, but it's very soft.
But it doesn't decrease the number of affordable units in Mamaroneck.
Jesse,
No,
we're going to.
not theoretically, anyway.
Alex
I mean,
is. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. Alex is trying to get the technicians here to work on the sound. Sorry that you're having trouble. The Albany team is having trouble hearing us. But Dan, we can hear you loud and clear, so thank you. And thanks for that explanation, which I think sounds, like the likely reason that we're getting them back.
Is there any sense proactively going out to everyone and saying, for us as a revenue source, but also to leverage our infrastructure and to support the local and to perhaps give us more control over supporting communities with control of all the vouchers, to proactively go after this solution with folks? To take over voucher administration for other people, say,
Do we want to do this more broadly?
Yeah.
Like go out and offer our services to local governments that are
Reactive.
not proactive.
I mean, I'm not sure HUD Buffalo would support us doing that, but but yeah, I mean, there's some benefit to it from our point of view.
Right, I'd also
have some
say,
students
James,
here.
that despite the lack of economic
can't hear.
support in smaller programs,
Let me try to.
the locality wants to hold on to their force.
Absolutely.
But they're not shy when they're done.
They can't hear.
about coming right back to us.
They're saying that they can't hear over there.
You can hear now, right?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dan.
Yeah, we can hear you, Dan. That's fine.
Can you hear us? You can hear?
Only when you
Yes,
speak
yes.
loudly.
Okay.
We'll start yelling.
We'll speak loudly. Any directors, any further questions? Any?
Let's
Great.
do it.
This is why having a little more time is so important here. Okay,
great.
so, let's see. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you. Number 10, resolution authorizing Section 8 project-based voucher awards for the fall 2022 funding round. Back to Dan.
Okay. Yep. So this is, again, continuation of our request for proposals from last fall. Last month, we made the largest award and got some project-based vouchers into circulation. We're approving a few more projects this time around. There will be a third tranche whenever we make 9% awards. We'll approve project-based vouchers for whatever projects are getting both 9% and project-based vouchers. But for this month, it's 5 existing projects and 2 new ones. The 5 existing projects are particularly helpful with our utilization because oftentimes those units are occupied by already income-eligible families.
Great. It's item 10 in the HTFC board book where you've got the chart of all the 5 projects. Any questions for Dan on this? If not, Diana, let's do it.
Now before the HFC members is a resolution authorizing Section 8 project-based voucher awards for the fall 2022 funding round. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you, everybody. 11 is a resolution authorizing amendments to the memoranda of understanding with state continuums of care and authorizing the allocation of administrative funding for the Section 8 Emergency Housing Voucher Program, the EHV program. And again, back to you, Dan. Thank you.
Great. We are 2 years into our emergency housing voucher allocation. You may remember this was a new program under the Biden administration to specifically target homeless households. It required us to work with local continuums of care, and we were able to execute memorandums of understanding with 19 of them, 17 of which are still active. We're in the final push for EHV. These vouchers cannot be reissued after September 30th of this year. The COCs are critical for us as a state public housing agency because we very much rely on them to be our boots on the ground to help the participants find housing and make their way through the application process. We gave them an initial batch of funding when the program first started, but they've spent that funding obviously through the first year really. And a number of them have asked for additional funding so they can continue to support this effort. And we feel this is a good and reasonable use of our federal administrative fees. So we're recommending an additional $750,000. This time, that money will be divided up proportionate to the number of vouchers, the number of referrals, the number of the amount of help that we're getting from each of the COCs. But that division hasn't been determined as of yet.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we don't know which counties these are going to?
No, you do. In the,
Where?
under item 11.
Looking at
Yeah, it's
that.
on the back.
Cayuga, Oswego,
So-
Niagara, Land,
Yeah, no, I saw that list of counties, but are all these vouchers going to all of these counties?
Well, these are admin funds. So yes, they would be divided up among the COCs representing these counties.
It's not, when you divide up $750,000 among this many COCs, you're not providing that much administrative support.
That's right. That's right.
Every
me, they'll
dollar
ask for
counts.
more.
Every dollar counts.
Are the COCs or local not-for-profits or county local units of government or both? I mean, Dan, what are they?
I think it's both. It's both. Most often, I think they're nonprofits, but it's usually a consortium of local governments and nonprofits that are in the homeless business.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Any other questions? Joyce, you good? All right, Diana, let's make it happen.
Now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing amendments to memorandum of understanding with state continuums of care and authorizing the allocation of administrative funding for the Section 8 Emergency Housing Voucher Program. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Before we go to 12, let's welcome James Freeman. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Hopefully, you didn't have to get up at the crack of dawn, but you're here early, so maybe you did anyway. But as you can see, we're at item 10 in this new flipped agenda as we try to get through the HTFC items. So bear with us, we have a few more to go. Number 12, resolution authorizing the allocation of Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Reserves for enterprise community partners to provide mobility counseling services. My suspicion, is right. It's Dan again.
Yes. So this is year 2 of this initiative. Year 1 went well. With the commissioner's support, we have been expanding our mobility counseling efforts in Section 8 to help Section 8 participants move from areas of concentrated poverty to areas with well-performing school districts and greater economic opportunity. You may know we've been doing this for years in Westchester County, but it was recently expanded in partnership with Enterprise Community Partners to also be in Erie County and Long Island. This will be year 2 of funding those 2 programs. Plus, we have a request for proposals on the street to add another 2 to 5 programs elsewhere in the state. Unofficially, we've gotten a good amount of interest to that RFP, and we're looking forward to several proposals on May 5th when proposals are due. So this funding will allow Enterprise to continue overseeing this program and facilitate the creation of new programs later this year.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan. Questions for Dan on this change or this? Diana, let's do it.
Okay. Now before the HFC members is a resolution authorizing the allocation of Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Reserves for enterprise community partners to provide mobility counseling services. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dan. We've got actually a couple more for Dan. Don't go anywhere, my friend. Resolution number 13, a resolution authorizing a contract with Nan McKay Associates for Section 8 related training. Dan, you again.
Sure. Great. Yeah, this is our team being a little bit proactive. We have a panel of firms that have already been procured, and one of them is Nan McKay Associates. We got a bid for Nan McKay for our training calendar for the next 3 years. So instead of having to come back to the board for each training, basically we've gotten one firm to lock in a price for 3 years for a whole bunch of trainings that we think we're going to need. It's particularly important this year because there are a lot of changes going on in the Section 8 program federally. There's a new inspection standard that's coming out, Inspire. There's the implementation of the HOTMA rules. So lots of things to train on. So we're going to go ahead and lock in that price and start setting our calendar now.
Okay, good. Any questions for Dan on the proposal about training? Oh, let's do it.
Okay. Now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing a contract with Nan McKay Associates for Section 8 related training. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
14, a resolution authorizing a contract with Online Rental Exchange. Only Dan can explain this one.
All right. So this is to some extent part of our larger implementation of our technology transformation with emphasis. However, it is separately important. HUD requires that we conduct background checks of our Section 8 participants at minimum to check for sex offender status and if they've had convictions related to methamphetamines and some other issues. So in the past, we've relied on each of our local administrators to use their own process to conduct those checks. But we've decided to streamline that and provide one service that all 25 local administrators can tap into. This will hopefully improve the price and improve the consistency of the service. Online has been chosen to do that because they have an existing relationship with Emphasis that will allow us to integrate them into our future technology solution. So that's why we're recommending online.
All right, good. Any questions for Dan? Let's do it.
Now before the HTFC members is a resolution authorizing a contract with Online Rental Exchange. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
15 is a resolution authorizing an extension of the contract with Mark Anthony Architecture, PC, without a competitive award process. And this is, again, Dan.
No, this is Paul.
Well, it's not Mark Anthony the singer. It must be a different Mark Anthony the singer.
That would be very new for us.
That would be very new.
Dan, maybe you can unmute. I think we get a little bit of feedback from the office, if you don't mind.
This is Paul Lozito.
Yep.
Is the presenter for this?
When Paul presents, can you mute your microphone, please, Dan?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's just the sound is better without the feedback, a little bit of feedback.
Good morning. Yes, I am indeed Paul Zito. So I'm here on behalf of RHC. Mark Anthony is a qualified vendor under contract with RHC to provide design, permitting, and related services for construction of the Edgewater Park Firehouse. That firehouse is currently under construction. We need this vendor, this design vendor, to attest to their designs, the as-built plans once the construction is completed. There's been some delays in completing the construction, so we still continue to need their services. So we're recommending a time-only extension for the course of a year, so we have access to the architect on a monthly basis to make sure that they can attest to their plans and costs incurred and any unforeseen conditions.
So this is an extension of a contract with Mr. Anthony that's already in place?
Yes.
Right, got it.
Right, but this is the second extension.
Actually, seven?
What?
Sixth extension. It's the Sixth Amendment.
It's the Sixth Amendment.
It looks like it hit COVID and had some delays, and I don't know what the other delays were, but.
What were the delays?
Well, the delays that we had for the firehouse were actually that there's a supply chain issue in identifying for generators, actually, that are supposed to be delivered by June. Now it's November. We have the bill of lading, I think, in the Port of Newark. We've got some assurances that we will have it by.
Okay, you obviously can't function without it.
No, and you need an architect to sign off, so.
On the as-built.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks. Thank you for the questions. Anything else? Paul? No? Then Diana, let's do it.
Now before the HFC members is a resolution authorizing an extension of Mark Anthony Architecture PC without a competitive award process. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HTFC board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried and the resolution adopted.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's on his way to New Jersey to wait for the ship with that generator. Very good. The remainder of the agenda items are informational. There'll be no presentation unless requested by any of you. 16, again, all this in the materials. This is a 108-page book for HTFC today. Review of the secret type 2 actions. Heather Spitzberg has that under control. 17, annual review of the memorandum of agreement with Natural Heritage Trust. 18 is an annual review of Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher local administrator contracts. 19 is review of the Neighborhood Preservation Program and Rural Preservation Program Homeownership Preservation Initiative for outreach and education. And finally, 20, which is the last item in this month's HTFC book, is a review of the current agency procurement contracts in the lobbying restricted period. We will now move to HFA board and committee meetings if the commissioner and our great counsel to my right, Diana Lopez, agree. The first item is the approval of minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee meetings and of the HFA AHC board meetings. Absent corrections from members, I will deem those minutes approved. Everybody good with the minutes from AHC and HFA from last month? Okay. There is no action item for the Audit Committee and only one action item for governance, which is approval and review of various contracts monitored by the Facilities and Administration Department. And that is a consent item. Diana, I think we need a resolution for that.
Yes. Now before the HFA, AHC, TSFC.
Skip TSFC.
Okay, I was gonna say that.
Yep.
Okay. Now before HFA, AHC Governance Committee is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
And again, this is members of HFA and AHC, right?
Right.
Yep. Right.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thanks, everyone. There is only one information item on the Governance Committee agenda this morning, and it's the annual review of the Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, with the Natural Heritage Trust. And I need to actually go to my other board book. And then we have two action items for HFA that are both consent items. The first is a resolution approving of the bond sale report for the period commencing November 1st, 2022 and ending January 31st, 2023.
That's a good
Again,
report.
Let me just say, because we don't often talk about the bond sale report. Alex, how do you feel about the bond sale report?
James, how do you feel? James used to prepare the bond sale report.
James, how do you feel about this bond?
Love the bond sale report.
Good.
It's a very important report.
There is a lot of work that goes into the bond sale report. Let's be.
Good answer.
And so thanks to everybody for preparing that, and for Alex for flagging it as he does, which is important. And we also have, as an action item, our consent item, also, approval of the annual investment report, same period, 10/31/22 for HFA, and the quarterly AHC report, which is of September 30th, 2022. Any questions about either one of those reports?
I had a question on the investment report.
Please.
It's on page 123.
James.
No, but it says that we earned 4% on our earnings for SONYMA when we were earning 2% for HFA on our earnings. But it looks like none of the investments that we actually had for SONYMA were above 4%. So or above 2%. So I'm just not sure how we got at that number.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
I think actually we're looking at the financials, and I think Kenny raised that point yesterday in an email.
Okay.
So I think that has to be, I think that's an error.
Okay.
Okay, we'll double check that.
One question on the financials too, I guess. So are we do you know if they're gonna be filed by the 180 days?
No.
Okay.
So
We know that they're not gonna be filed by then.
They're not gonna be filed.
And you wanna explain the conversation you had with?
yes, so, as you know, we've had some issues, and so we decided, James, that we could have filed the unaudited financials with Emma. We're permitted to do that. but because this is the first time we're working on a new system, we talked about it and discussed it with Ruth Ann, and we took it and discussed it with outside counsel, and we felt that it was better for us to take the hit in a sense and file a late notice with Emma, meaning that for the next 5 years, that'll be in each of our OSs that we failed to file. Because I think the market is, that is comfortable with those kinds of late filings, as opposed to taking the chance of filing the unaudited, when they're still under review.
Okay. The only thing I would maybe do is proactively do a voluntary filing to say that you're going to be late.
We're doing that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's actually something you can lean on in your disclosure around explaining the technology transition as a methodology for doing that. Totally.
So our deadline is Saturday, April 29th. We are going to file the voluntary notice before then.
Okay.
Yep. And I think this is one of those reasons why we're not doing the unaudited. So we're going to double check this.
Okay.
Okay.
So our hope is to bring the financials to either the May or June board meeting, depending on EY schedule.
Okay. Is the plan then to bring it back to January next year when it was traditionally presented?
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, you're on it, James.
I worked on that.
Any other quick, James? Thank you. Seriously, thanks very much.
Point.
Any other good points and good catch on the interest, the difference in the interest rate. Any other questions on the sponsor report and the investment report, or the late filing? Okay, Dana.
Okay. Now before the HFA and AHC boards are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with these two items. Assuming the first and second previously reported, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
Great. We've got two HFA informational items. The first is a review of the agency's first quarterly procurement report for the period commencing November 1, 2022 and ending January 31st this year. The second is the current agency procurement contracts and lobbying restricted period. Do we have, and I'm at the third, which I have to turn the page over, is the swap report, the quarterly swap report. So that should be in all of your materials, and that's, again, just informational. Thanks to the team, well, to many colleagues who have worked so hard to put all that together for us. We're going to move to approval of the HFA projects on the agenda. They're found in the board books and are listed as items 11B, 12B, and 14. I think we'll see these again later when they come up for SONYMA mortgage insurance, right? So we're going to start with 11B, which is the resolution of the HFA members authorizing a small building participation loan in an amount not to exceed $2,100,000 for 950 Broadway in Buffalo.
Is Burke, are you on?
Hi, hi, it's Madeline.
Well, hi, Madeline's going to do this.
I'm going to do this one. So 950 Broadway is the adaptive reuse of a historic department store in the Broadway Fillmore neighborhood of Buffalo. Responding to community need, 28 units will serve households between 60 and 80% of the MSA, and the ground floor commercial space will be occupied by an affordable nonprofit daycare center. In addition to the $2.1 million requested in small buildings participation loan funds, CPC construction financing, and historic tax credits, the project will also benefit from the investment of Empire State Development dollars from the Downtown Revitalization Initiative and the Better Buffalo Fund, totaling over $2.4 million. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Madeline. Any questions for Madeline on this project in Buffalo?
Have to recuse here.
Okay. Sadie's going to recuse herself.
Okay. You're doing good, okay.
Okay, my turn?
Yep.
Okay. Now before the HFA members is a resolution to be adopted that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Note that Sadie Allen is herself. The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
You know, this, if it weren't for $100,000, the ESD would be the bigger funder of this project than HFA. But anyway, that's just kind of fun to know.
But for 100,000.
Yeah, because they've got the Better Buffalo Fund grant, right? So they're at $2 million and we're 2.1.
We did that on purpose.
Yeah. Putting them, I think of it, Joyce, and I think of it as our former
Complain to CPC.
putting them back in the affordable housing business. Very good. Let's go to 12B, Resolution to Finance Program Committee and of HFA members recommending and approving the issuance of tax exempt or taxable fixed or variable bonds in an amount not to exceed $52,190,000 and an amount not to exceed $22,680,000 in HFA subsidy funds. And this is a big project for the St. Anselm Apartments project, which is in the Bronx. Madeline's doing this? Oh, you're here. My goodness, you're from behind, I'm glad they turned the lights on back there. Now we can see where everybody is. And the room filled up while we were talking.
Oh, and Joyce has some students coming, but maybe.
No, they're here.
Oh, wait, let's pause and now, who are Joyce's students? Professor Miller. Welcome. I'm Chairman Adams. Good to have you.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Can you hear back there?
Can you hear okay? Professor Miller, participation in outside events counts a lot towards the final grade of the course. Your grade just went up by being here, I guarantee you.
Right.
I'm the chairman. By the power vested in me. Let's go to this okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So good morning, everyone. I'm here to present St. Anselm Apartments. So this is a 126-unit new construction project located in the South Bronx. The building site is the parking lot of an existing church, St. Anselm. And that parking lot is going to be now converted into a building site for this project. It's being developed by an affiliate of the Catholic Church. And their name is, give me one second, IHD, which is the Catholic Charities Archdiocese of New York's development wing. This project will be 50% supportive under the ESHI program. There is a diversity of supportive populations served here, including domestic violence survivors, and for tenants who suffer from chronic homelessness, both singles and families. Services on site will be provided by Nazareth, who is a longtime service provider in this community and has worked with this development team in the past. I was asked to keep my comments brief, so I will strive to do that. I would only highlight here that there are some interesting green design elements, including a solar array on the roof. There are solar equity coming into this project, along with some NYSERDA funding. This project did not leverage the CEI financing because they were able to secure other incentives through NYSERDA. And I will conclude there and take any questions you have on this project.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
St. Anselm still have a congregation?
I'm not totally sure.
Well,
But they do have excess property, as many parishes do.
Yeah.
And so this is a really, really, a good use, I think, from a mission standpoint for a lot of the church's properties.
It's an interesting way to find space.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, parking lots for churches are certainly some of the few remaining sites to find in the city.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much.
Nice project.
Yeah, nice project. Diana, let's make it happen.
Now before the HFA members and the.
Is the tax equity on the solar coming from the same people as the tax credit? Is it different equity coming in? Do you know? Or is that equity providers also participating in solar equity?
Is there a different investor in the solar credits, are you asking me? Unfortunately, I don't have that at my fingertips, but I can follow up with that response.
No, well, I'm just wondering, how much, do you remember, James, how much was the amount of the solar credit?
Oh.
It's like 400,000 or something.
Yeah, okay.
It's just making, if housing investors in tax credit equity are coming into the solar tax credit equity, that will make that market more competitive, which is good for the overall, like, renewal, for the projects as well as the market itself, which is, yeah.
Right. I wonder, do you think that's happening?
I know that certain tax credit investor equity syndicators are exploring raising solar funds that probably accompany their housing tax credit equity funds. But the Inflation Reduction Act is switching a lot of the incentive from an investor tax credit a lot of times to a direct pay model. which may actually negate the needs, but it may actually raise the efficiency on the economics of getting money into the deal. So it could be better for the projects.
As long as that money is there.
As long as it's there.
Then you go back to investor.
It's a much better way to use it in these deals. We need cash more than we need equity. I mean, it's one or the other, but it's just more efficient to choose this one.
Yeah.
Great, well, thanks, Julie. Diane, let's make it happen.
Now before the HFA members and the HFA Finance and Program Committee are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA and for the Finance Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motions are carried.
Great. Let's go to 13B. These are resolutions of the Finance and Program Committee and of the HFA members recommending and approving an issuance of tax-exempt or taxable fixed or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed $60,300,000 and an amount not to exceed $28,619,317 in HFA subsidy funds for the Matinacock Court project, which is in Huntington, Suffolk County. Yeah, Julie's going to do this. Thanks.
So this is really very exciting to be bringing this project to you guys today. As I was researching and reading through the notes that my staff prepared, I realized this project is almost, but not quite older than me. And I ain't young, huh?
40 years old?
Longer than that, actually. It is 1978, so that would be 44 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so almost, but not quite older than me. So we're really excited to finally be bringing a financeable model here. This is located in Suffolk County, East Northport hamlet of the town of Huntington. To briefly summarize sort of the story here, in the late 70s, there was an attempt to build multifamily affordable housing on this site by a group called Housing Help. That effort had been delayed and deferred for failure of the town to approve zoning that would allow for the construction. So a lawsuit was brought against the town. It continued to stall. Later, HUD withdrew CBDG to try to get the town to respond. Finally, after lots of stuff, a settlement was reached in the year 2000. And that settlement was with the town and with the state. And the state's responsibility, of course, was to commit to continued to allow for continued availability of funds to fund this project. You know, other developers had taken up this project and tried to get it across the finish line. And finally, in 2020, DNF Development, who is a Long Island developer who's been successful with a number of multifamily projects on Long Island, came into the project, and that is what we are bringing to you today. This project is exciting, and that is our first foray into a partnership with Suffolk County to provide housing for intellectually and developmentally disabled residents. So there will be 8 units reserved for folks being referred through OPWDD. Suffolk is contributing capital to support the sewer treatment that has to be built here. And we are structuring this as a limited equity co-op. The income or the affordability distribution ranges from 50 to 80% of AMI. I would also note that this project is a townhouse design. So each tenant will have their own doorway, for example, to the outside, washer and dryer and suite, and other amenity features. So I will stop my comments there and happy to take any questions that you may have.
Limited equity co-op is a kind of unusual arrangement for us.
It is.
Is this our first in a while? Right?
Yeah. Well, the cooperators, what kind of down payment do they have to make? What kind of equity?
It would be equivalent to 1 month's rent, 1 month's security, so a total of 2 months' rent.
Probably very very palatable for the municipality as an
Yeah.
ownership project in some way, but I would just say hats off. This has been hanging out for decades now. A while back. So hats off to DNF also for being able to figure it out. I note the costs have gone up significantly over time, but that's what happens when you're inefficient with your ability to get a deal through the process. So, but congratulations, it's great to see this level of affordability also.
It's big, 146 units in this
Yes,
community.
It's a
it
great
is.
site. I mean, it's just
It's transit oriented, it's walking distance to the train.
Amy, was an NAACP lawsuit?
That was what initiated
The original,
the legal actions in the late 70s. That's right.
Yeah, Julie, if I may, this is Amy Zamanek for the HTFC side. I just wanted to mention the settlement agreements. As you mentioned earlier, we have a settlement agreement with the state that's been outstanding since 2000. It's going to the court to be amended, relieving HTFC of its requirements under it and putting HFA in its place. It also, the one that was outstanding had anticipated that funding would have happened. It had unfortunately left us in a situation in perpetuity. And so this one has an end date should things go wrong, not that I expect it to. But I just wanted to mention to the board that there is a settlement agreement that will be coming in that affects both HFA and HTFC.
And that's laid out in the board memo.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
My turn.
Your turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now before the HFA members and the HFA Finance and Program Committee are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA and for the Finance Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
Very good. Thank you, Diana. Thanks, everybody. We're going to go to number 14. This is interesting, and it's closer to home here out of JFK. This is resolution of HFA members authorizing the making of a subsidy loan in an amount not to exceed $47,700,000 for the JFK Hilton project in Queens, Jamaica, Queens County. Again, Julie's going to present this one, and this is kind of interesting, isn't it, Julie?
It is pretty interesting. So this project is also unique and interesting, and we're happy to be bringing it. So this is our first project pursuant to the state's efforts under the Housing Our Neighbors with Dignity program that was a change to the private housing finance law in 2021. And this is an effort and funding available to acquire and or convert existing hotels or commercial office buildings into permanently affordable housing. This was an initiative that came in during the pandemic. So we have been given 150 million plus, I think, an additional 50 million under this program to effectuate these types of projects. So this one is an existing Hilton hotel. It's in the South Ozone Park neighborhood of South Jamaica, Queens, not far from JFK. The project is currently an operating hotel. Upon conversion, it is another quite large project. Let me just not tell any lies here. It will be 318 units with 1 unit for a superintendent. And this project is part of a coordinated effort between state and city government, who also have a program to promote these types of developments. So the way we are participating here is in supporting the acquisition of this property. So we will be participating with the New York City Acquisition Loan Fund. The Corporation for Supportive Housing is originating through that loan fund. They will be contributing some portion of the acquisition, and we will be contributing approximately $47 million, which is 150 per unit, which is our term sheet limit. We will secure the site. And the subsequent development will be financed by HPD and HDC. And our loan will stay in as a permanent loan in the permanent construction project. So just a few other things I will note here. This housing is meant to be permanently affordable, so we will effectuate that under a 99-year lease and regulatory agreement. And this housing is meant to serve folks who are formerly homeless or low income. So to effectuate that, we are working with New York City HRA, and they will be providing a contract for a project-based contract to support the financing of the units for the formerly homeless on this project. Those units will be supported by the city's FEPS program, which looks and feels a lot like Section 8, except that it's city capital. So, but the vouchers will support the same level, FMR levels, maybe even 110% of FMR they can go up to. So again, to be clear, we are financing the acquisition. Our loan will stay in through permanent. And we are co-financing the acquisition with the New York City Acquisition Loan Fund, who will be picking up approximately 30 million of this, a little less, 26 million. So I will conclude my comments there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Julie. What are we getting paid on our loan? Is it like a subsidy loan, like at 1% or 0.5%?
50 basis points
50 basis
is what
points.
we are underwriting our subsidy loans to right now.
Is HTC reducing their fee as well? Are we working with them on, they're obviously making they're doing the permanent financing. I was just curious if we're obviously putting in capital, long-term capital to support them. It's obviously a collaborative process, but I was just curious if there's more of these types of financings that can be done if we're thinking about using these strategic resources to acquire properties that they can finance if they have other resources available from the city versus stuff that we have in our budget and things like that. It just seems like at $400,000 a unit and to do a deal in the city, that's a great price. And it seems like this collaboration was very effective in working it. So I don't know. There's more that can be done on that.
Potentially, and we may see more like this, right? Yeah. So we're in a situation where our funds can be used for acquisition, which is somewhat unique, right? Yeah. So we're able to leverage a relationship with the loan fund. And on the HDC side, this particular project, they're using 501c3, and there'll be a lot of subsidy coming in. But there could be other executions.
Market rate properties go as part. I think it's just if the commercial market, you're seeing so much in the city converting commercial office spaces. And right now the price of commercial mortgage-backed securities are still in the 90s, 95, but you're likely to see additional drop as potentially in those too. So for these types of conversions, these run through of acquisition of assets with our funds to be converted seems like a feasible thing. I don't know what to do in the future, and just it's great to see that this is getting done. It's cool.
Yeah, my question was, and you might not have an answer, but what is the occupancy of the hotel that's incenting them to sell it? Did it get hit during COVID, or what's you probably don't know the answer.
Why did the seller sell, you mean?
Yeah, why are they selling?
It looks like the road.
Hotels at the airports, the building is beautiful. It looks like it's in good shape.
Yeah. But this is from my prior experience, but I think hotels at the New York City airports have always been very challenged because it's not that hard to get into the city. And if somebody, why stay by the airport? It really isn't that big a hike. And I think that the airports within the city are very competitive. And I think that I think it's true at LaGuardia. I just know this from my prior, but it's true at LaGuardia. It's also true at JFK. I don't know specifically, but my guess would be that it just, I think COVID probably, as with many hotels, had a real impact.
That makes a lot of sense. We're just, every time somebody from our team comes in to stay overnight, it's $1,000 a night to stay in a New York City hotel in town.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to work for you.
Wow.
Even in advance, it's $700, $800, $900 a night. Which seems crazy. Now they're not. We would never put them up at the airport.
Wait, maybe this is a business opportunity for. Don't sell.
So it just was, it's curious to me, because I'm hearing one thing on the hotel side and then they're selling, but the location, it makes sense, because the building is really nice.
But also, you just think about it, our airports in New York are not really that,
Right,
by
not
public
far,
transit
yeah.
to get into, so which,
And they've
again, if you had an
improved
easy
that a lot.
commute into the city would be one thing, but it's not, unfortunately.
Actually, when I see all those hotels lined up at the airport, I always wonder what their vacancy is.
Well, some are, you know,
Yeah.
there are a couple that look like really, because there are no cars in the
Yeah.
parking lot. The one we right at the main entrance to JFK, that thing's been vacant for years.
Right.
The
But that's,
Holiday Inn.
yeah, that's, I mean, I think they're like, I think Customs and Border, I mean, they're
It's-
used for other things.
It's gotta be a hard
Yeah,
business.
it's a very hard,
Great use for this building.
yeah.
And Julie, we helped them acquire the site, including the parking lot and their unused development rights on the parking lot. Right now, I don't know in this market what that value is, but down the road, are they getting, because they're getting a big site and it's a big parking lot.
Right, so there is no plan at the moment to build above this and use those rights. So the transaction that the seller negotiated actually, I believe, has the seller retaining the air rights. Right, so currently there's no anticipated, second transaction that would build above this
With the
thing.
zoning, this kind of, it's complicated. So,
Looking, yeah, I was gonna say, looking at the map, what kind of access does it have to retail facilities?
This is
Stores.
sort of at
It's
the
called
edge
Two-Fair
of
Zone.
of Ozone Park, I guess South Jamaica. So, there's a residential neighborhood of 2 and 3 family homes. And that walk to, let me just remember what
Take a
the main
bus trip.
avenue is
it's-
about
It's-
5
yeah, I mean,
minutes.
it's pretty far out.
But there is decent bus access on Rockaway Boulevard.
Right.
And this is, very much a residential neighborhood that they are at the edge of.
Will they provide like a shuttle of any kind to retail?
Yeah, so I should mention that, that part of this program is that not-for-profits have to be the owners, right? So in this case, by the time of permanent conversion, Riseboro will be the sole owner of this project. The ground floor actually provides a lot of opportunities for interesting ways to sort of connect this property. So they're actively engaged in looking at that, and they specifically intend to provide shuttle services for folks who may need that. So they're working hard now to use that ground floor as a space for integration.
and just to follow up on James's observation earlier, it's our subsidy loan that enables them to buy the property. How recent is the appraisal?
Oh, it's recent, and we probably had an update. I'm not exactly sure the most recent update, but we will have another one before we go to closing.
It's accurately.
Absolutely, and I will say that.
It's also
You wanna go to
difficult to
appraisal,
do an
I guess, is the point.
appraisal on this, isn't it?
Well,
I mean,
and
are
this
they
is.
comparables?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
it is a bit of a challenge, and it's part of why we're working with the Acquisition Loan Fund, right? Because and CSH, they're really set up to do the diligence on something like this, whereas, we are not so set up for that. So we've really been able to leverage CSH and the Acquisition Loan Fund's expertise and getting us to the right spot here.
Great.
It is an
Complicated
interesting
project,
time
thanks,
for
Julie.
appraisals, though. It's a good question.
Pardon me?
Yeah, and I
It's an
should know
interesting
this
time
off
for
the top of
Well,
my
that's
head.
my,
I don't know if we
values are
got the
sort of-
most recent one today or
For
if
this,
it's
for
coming
something
right
like
after
this,
this.
how to value it?
But I promise we won't close without the updated
I'm
appraisal.
sure, no, just, again, we don't, this is the first one of these projects in this
Yes,
fund, right? So
yes,
we
it
don't
is.
see this very
It
often.
is, yeah.
It's a new mechanism. The partnership with HPD
It's
is
a great
terrific.
idea.
Yeah,
But, it's got some wrinkles, right? It's got some challenges.
they all have hair.
Oh, yeah.
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 But we're doing it.
But we're working through it.
If they were easy, someone else would do them.
Go, Sadie.
Like CPC.
All right, let's, no further questions. Let's help Julie get this over the goal line there, Diana.
Now before the HFA members is a resolution to be adopted that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
We've got some AHC consent items, which is item 15 in the agenda and in your materials. And it's a resolution authorizing the awarding of grant funds for certain projects. Let's take a look at that. 15.
There's only one. I
There's
think.
only one? All right, good.
Atlantic Avenue?
So if there are no questions about it, let's move it, Diana, and we'll keep
Okay.
going ahead.
Now before AHC is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Right. We've got to take up an informational item, and it's on HFA sustainability guidelines. This is actually going to be really interesting. Before we adjourn and bring SONYMA members, wait, James is here.
And Dave is also
And Dave, I saw come in, and I don't see Professor
Maybe would
Ford. Is Wallace coming today?
He's supposed to come, yes.
All right, hopefully, because we're going to need a laptop for him, I think.
Yes, we're gonna.
We have one here.
All right, well, that's Dave's.
I'll vacate.
Anyway, I guess I have to turn to the President, CEO, and Commissioner to say, it says adjourn and bring SONYMA members in the room, meaning we were going to step out and refill our coffee, but I don't think we're going to do that. We'll have a presentation on HFA sustainability guidelines. A PowerPoint has been provided to everybody in advance of this meeting, and Samantha Pierce is going to lead us in this, and it'll wrap up our HFA, HTFC, and AHC board activities for the morning when we are done. So last time, but really kind of the last item on this morning's agenda. Hi, Samantha.
We hope to make this fun and exciting.
Oh, fantastic.
To close out this portion of the board meeting. I'm also joined by my colleague, Christy Witcher, who's actually going to kick off our presentation. And it's up on the screen for anybody.
I'm sorry, I want to see if Dave is getting his coffee and get him, because he may think we're still voting on other items.
Just for him to listen.
He's right here.
Oh, what are you doing over there?
You're welcome to come sit at the table, Dave.
Table so you can see.
He's having fun watching
I
us.
think you asked for this presentation last time. Dave Capella, everyone. Where are our students? Where are you from? Where do you live? Queens Village? Okay, Queens Village. And your college, where'd you go?
Hi, how are you?
And just kind of, because you see, we do projects in finance, affordable housing all across the state. We love Queens, don't get me wrong. And where is she from? Roosevelt Island. Neighbor, right here. Fantastic. We also do this thing called RIA, the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation, the land underneath your home. We do a lot with that. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Shall we commence?
Yes, I would just add that we, based on some of the conversations we've had at prior board meetings about our design guidelines and our sustainability guidelines, we asked to sort of pull this together, kind of a little bit of like a board information piece, but just.
You mean Parenton? Was the project?
Just in general and things that come up about sort of what are we reviewing, how are we have two very sort of specific divisions that have very specific guidelines and materials we put together that we use with our development partners. So I thought it'd be helpful for them to just talk through that. And there's like so much depth in this, it's hard to kind of do like a quickie overview, but we thought we would at least start with this. We can always come back if there's more stuff. So kick it back to you guys.
All right, great, thanks. If you can go to the next slide. So this presentation, we're just going to give you a very high-level overview of the.
Can everybody hear back
Yeah,
there?
can you speak really loud?
Yeah,
And
sorry.
actually, let's put one of the speakers closer to you so that everybody can hear.
Sure.
Yeah, great.
Do we know who's operating? Yeah.
Lil, if you can hear us, can you go to the next slide? The man.
All right, well, there we go. All right, thanks, Lil. So we are going to start with a basic overview and history of the design guidelines, and then we'll dive into a little bit more on the content of both the design portions and sustainability portions of these guidelines. Next slide, please, Lil. All right, so design guidelines. What are the design guidelines? Why do we have additional requirements on our projects that we fund? So the objective of the design guidelines is that they set a standard and they provide guidance for affordable housing projects on how they should be constructed. And this is in addition to and not in place of local and state building code requirements, as well as federal accessibility requirements that might be applicable to any of our projects. Now, the standards were developed to really ensure a minimum standard for quality, function, and durability in the projects that are funded by the agency. And the goals and objectives of the design guidelines are to aid applicants and architects in producing functional, safe, durable, climate-friendly, and cost-effective housing that has the goal of adding value to communities, pride amongst the residents, and promotes healthy living. Now, these design guidelines are overseen by two different departments. We have the Design, Construction, and Environmental Unit,
also known as DC&E. I am the VP of this unit, the DC&E unit. Myself, I have extensive background in multifamily housing. I'm a registered architect and have, prior to joining the agency in 2017, I worked as a designer and architect for multiple multifamily developments across the Northeast US and even abroad. Diving into a bit of the timeline and the history of the design guidelines at the agency, the DHCR Project Design Handbook dates back as early as 1992, and updates have been provided to that booklet yearly. But in general, the content and the format has remained the same, largely the same up until 2020. And there was a rework of the HTFC Design Handbook at that point into our new HCR Design Guidelines booklet. The design unit headed up the rework of that booklet, but it also consisted of a committee of developers, of project architects, and internal staff at HCR. So, and the intent of the rework of this booklet was really to provide more of a cohesive, single design requirement for all projects funded by the agency, and it became applicable to all 9% competitive projects that were funded through the RFP, all 4% bond and subsidy projects, and also all SIF standalone projects. So nearly all projects that come in front of you at the board here are fully vetted through these design guidelines in our design and sustainability units. Now, back in 2020, the one thing that really wasn't a cohesive standard was the sustainability portions of projects. They're still a little bit different between different funding sources. So that's where my colleague Samantha Pierce comes in. She'll give you a little bit of background on that.
So as Christy mentioned, in 2020, we expanded and introduced the sustainability guidelines, and I also joined the agency in 2021. So I've been here for just over 2 years now. I'm a lead a lead AP and also an associate AA member. So my background is in architecture, and I have over 10 years of experience working in energy management services and actually on the developer side. And so really excited to have joined the agency at a really exciting time for all things sustainability and climate environmental consciousness. And so in 2022, we actually updated the Appendix F of the design guidelines, which included the sustainability section. And while it set some really good standards, was sort of small for where we're going as a whole state with our climate goals. So we expanded the design guidelines to include what we call a sustainability booklet section, which we'll get into in a minute or two. So I'll speak to that in just a second, but first we're going to go to the next slide, and Christy's going to talk a little bit about some of the design guideline overview.
So this slide just gives you a general idea of the content of the design guidelines. We look at environmental requirements and reviews. We touch on accessibility requirements, which are complicated depending on the type of projects that we're funding. So we give a little bit of background and assistance on what's applicable there. The bulk of this booklet is based in project design criteria, and we break that into 4 different sections, and that's really to aid architects when they're looking to design projects to meet these criteria. And those 4 sections are site development, building envelope and structure and utilities, interior shared common space, and dwelling unit space. We also have a section on preservation project requirements. That's all projects undergoing a moderate rehabilitation. We delve into submission and contracting requirements within the booklet, and last but not least, sustainability requirements. Next slide. All right. Now, as I mentioned, the project design criteria is really what makes up the bulk of this booklet. And again, the intent is to really produce safe, functional, durable, climate-friendly, and cost-effective housing. So we have a set of different criteria within the booklet that we use to determine what these requirements should be. And these criteria are mainly goals. So the first set of criteria is for design and context criteria. And we look at things like, does the building fit into the context of the neighborhood in which it's being placed? We look at things like building efficiency. Are we building space that is usable? Are we spending our money wisely? We look at things like dwelling unit space. We have minimum and maximum sizes for the dwelling units. and we look at design requirements within the units themselves. We also touch on accessibility and visibility criteria, and that includes things like, is there an accessible route into and through the building, through the dwelling units, things like ramps, elevators, lifts. And then we also touch on, this is unique to HCR, visitability, right? Can these units be visited by somebody with mobility impairments? Is there a restroom on the first floor of two-story townhouses that these people can use? The third set of criteria is quality of life criteria, and this touches on requirements and recommendations for outdoor and indoor amenities, things such as fitness areas, playgrounds, remote work and computer labs. We touch on high-speed broadband requirements, and we also touch on in-unit fixture requirements, things like light fixtures, hardwired light fixtures, which aren't required by code. But part of our requirements is that we believe that tenants should not be having to provide their own lighting in their living rooms and bedrooms. So moving on to the fourth criteria, if you can move to the next slide. We have health and safety criteria, and this has requirements for physical aids in senior projects, things like handrails in the hallways, wayfinding means throughout the building. We also touch on natural light and ventilation requirements, which there are exceptions to in the code, so we make sure that there's windows and operable windows in every bedroom and living room. Moving on to the fifth set of criteria, security and resident safety criteria. This is where we touch on things like, are there safe spaces designed within the building? Do we have possibly dangerous alleys or niches within the building? We look to vet those. Is there security fencing provided around stormwater ponds and playgrounds that are provided on our playground or on our projects? And locking hardware and other hardware provided on doors, such as peepholes. And the final set of criteria has to do with operational efficiency and durability. And this is where we look at things like minimum specifications required for materials and systems in the project, warranty requirements for roofs, exterior materials, plumbing systems. And this is all to ensure that we're extending the useful life of the project. We want to make sure that we have value in the investments that we're making at the agency. And a lot of these criteria, the other main goal is that we are utilizing these criteria to provide housing that really enhances or betters the life of the residents within it. So I will mention also there is a process to request waivers from any of these design criteria in our booklets. Those can be submitted to the design unit and the sustainability unit. We thoroughly review those before we provide any waivers. So as a segue into Samantha's presentation of the sustainability guidelines, again, the sustainability portions used to be sprinkled throughout the design guidelines in an Appendix F, and really in support of the CLCPA and to provide that single cohesive standard for all projects. That's where we extracted these and created the sustainability guideline booklets.
Next slide, Lo. Awesome. So really excited that we introduced this, I think, beautiful set of sustainability guidelines thanks to our really great graphics department in-house. And we really focused these and aligned all three booklets on the requirements and draft scoping plan from the Climate Action Council, which sets and is asking us to decarbonize our housing. So we took a really specific approach here to actually create not just in one booklet, but because there's really specific goals and criteria for existing buildings versus new construction, we split the booklets into two in terms of the refinancing requirements. And we introduced a third book to help our buildings that are currently in operation. So our third book is our preservation, operations, and maintenance book. And so while that book is not a part of the refinancing part, it is a really key component to get our existing buildings into a refinancing cycle. So it helps outline best practices for a building under operation and under the oversight of our asset management team.
So I'll talk a little bit more exclusively about our existing buildings and new construction guidelines. But really exciting, within the structure of the book, we introduced not just a baseline requirement, like what Christy spoke to of all of the sections in the design guidelines. So we have baseline requirements, which means any project that comes to our agency needs to meet the baseline in their applicable sustainability booklet, but also introduce the concept of stretch. Since sustainability is still new for some people, we wanted to make sure folks knew where they could be going, even if they couldn't do that at the moment they were applying for a project. So in our partnership with NYSERDA, which I'm sure many of you may be familiar with, our Clean Energy Initiative, which we've presented to the board in the past, we've actually aligned additional incentive money if projects are able to meet some of those stretch goals. So if you meet a stretch goal, you might actually be able to qualify for additional funding for the project through that Clean Energy Initiative. Next slide. So within our booklet on our first page, just really quick, I think this is really critical for market transparency, so we're sort of bringing everyone along with us. We include a snapshot of where we're going for the next 20 years to really reach the CLCPA goals. So this graphic is actually in each booklet to really show the industry, yes, these are the baseline requirements now, but if you're planning a project that might not close for 3 or 5 years, take a look at this to just see maybe where we'll be going, so you're not surprised that you might need to meet those requirements. And again, really just aligning with the goals of our now scoping plan that we have. Next slide. So the fun stuff. So starting with existing buildings, what are we saying in the guidelines? As Christy mentioned, as a baseline requirement, which is on that top table there, these are sort of the minimum standards of all projects that are now coming before the board going forward. And we broke out existing buildings a little bit further into 4 different categories, just because, again, a project that is moderate rehab is maybe a lighter touch. Hello. So our mod rehabs might be a lighter touch, so we wouldn't require the same extensive equipment and systems replacement that we would in a substantial or gut rehab as we would in a mod rehab, because that wouldn't be cost effective. So that's why we further split them out to really recognize that. Our adaptive reuse projects, we require full electrification and meeting a high performance standard that's aligned with our new construction projects. For our substantial rehabs, we're requiring at least a 20% energy reduction from their baseline building, meaning they're doing substantial work to reduce the on-site emissions. And in our stretch section, we are asking substantial rehabs to consider full electrification if they're able to get all the way as a project, but it's not a requirement at this time. And for our mod rehabs, we're requiring them to do a really comprehensive report on the building to identify the conditions of all the systems, not both just the life of them, but the actual performance of them. So that's in a document called an Integrated Physical Needs Assessment, or an IPNA. For the stretch goals for the mod rehabs, we're asking them if they are replacing their heating system that they go all electric. And so that's part of a stretch goal, but again, not a full requirement at this stage. So that's just a little flavor of sort of what's in there. Next slide. On the new construction side, really exciting, we are requiring, as we sort of announced, I think a couple months ago, we're requiring all electric high performance standards to meet third-party systems such as LEED, Enterprise Green, or Fitwel or Well Building. And so those certifications are all really robust with their own requirements, and we're requiring any new construction project to choose one of those 4 items to meet our minimum qualifications, along with a host of other sort of materiality, resiliency, and on-site solar requirements that are in the larger document. And for a stretch example, we still want to push people even further, even in new construction. And so we're asking them to consider really enhanced certification standards such as Passive House, which are really sort of net zero. They're making as much energy on site as they're using. So that's really exciting, and we're trying to push the market towards that in our stretch goals for new construction. I think that's it. We've tried to go through pretty quickly here, and I will just flag that in the material that you've been provided, there's flags on some of the items just to show the alignment with our Clean Energy Initiative and some of those stretch goals that I've spoken to. But next slide. So we're happy to take any questions. I know that was a lot that we threw at you and probably pretty quick, but we're happy to take questions now or later.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and for also sharing the PowerPoint in advance. It's really helpful and has a lot of great information. Pause to recognize the arrival of our friend, colleague, Professor Wallace Ford, coming in for our SONYMA activities. And Wallace, you can see as you enter the room here that we've been given a PowerPoint on both design guidelines, sustainability guidelines that was distributed in the materials. So I just have a general question, I guess, which is, from the developer point of view, like I show up and I'm looking for support, financing, loans, grants, et cetera, from these agencies, and I sort of want to say to you, I've got a lot of stuff that's a requirement of local building codes, and now I'm speaking to the state of New York. Some of what's in this PowerPoint is, well, I'm kind of curious to know how you could take a lot of what's going on here and say, this is what the state requires, this is this aspirational stretch, we'd love you to do it, but it's going to probably drive up your cost. Or at least I, the developer, is going to say, that's really nice, Samantha, but I'll do that next time. So, I don't know, sort of big picture wise, how much of this is actually required of developers in New York State and how much is kind of aspirational?
I think a really small portion of what both Christy and I covered today is aspirational. All of what Christy covered is sort of baseline requirements to ensure we're just building at a benchmark, really safe and environmentally friendly housing. The stretch goal is really pushing people to sort of where we need to go by 2050.
Especially in this sustainability, less on the design side, less Christy stuff.
A really maybe tangible example is we're not requiring solar on our existing buildings, but we're asking them to consider feasibility studies, and then solar would be an additional. What we're hoping to do with the stretch goals is that in 5 years, some of those stretch goals become baseline. So we're trying to familiarize the market with the idea of them. And then also on my team side, really work with our colleagues on the HFA and HTFC side to help them connect to other financing sources or incentive programs that are on the market that they can pair with our financing, even if we're not the ones directly giving it to them. So we're trying to tie some funding availability to some of those aspirational items.
Right.
And
Otherwise,
also add, I just want to applaud the agency for really leaning in on sustainability. Ruth Ann was the co-chair of the Climate Action Council, where at the end of that process, I'm not sure Ruth Ann could have continued to put so much public capital into affordable housing without really pushing for compliance with the CLCPA, because that is a law on the books requiring, if you go back to the timeline, that we get to, all renewable energy and 85% emission reductions by 2050. You really have to start, buildings are 40%, right? So you have to get there. And so I know I came out of that process. I was on that committee thinking any public dollar that touches a building needs to consider what can we do. And I really like the way this takes you along that continuum. If it's brand new and you're getting some extra money from NYSERDA, you're high performance all electric. You have to be. You're fully compliant with CLCPA. But what this does is gives you all the information of how to get there and what you should consider and what is feasible. And also, we have an expert internally on the team here, and that's critically important because most people just don't know about this stuff. And so to have a lifeline in Samantha to give them guidance and work with other lenders that are in these projects is really, really important. So I'm thrilled to see it, and I'm thrilled to see the state also, at the same time that we're doing this with buildings, making the grid renewable and cleaning the grid. That's a huge commitment from NYSERDA, my NYSERDA board hat on, and they are really keeping that promise. There's a tremendous amount of procurement for wind, hydro, offshore, a lot of solar, and then on top of all that, the IRA. And so what will happen is that, to James's earlier point, there will be additional resources so that we can get to that baseline, that business as usual, much quicker. It's there to accelerate the market. We're animating the market with these changes now, and that's there to accelerate the market. In 10 years, we should be sitting here and every one of these projects should be compliant with the highest standards.
Yeah, I just want to say, this is amazing. The idea of HDR and HFA coming together, unifying it to go from the design guides that were here to these 3 books that are beautiful, as you said, it is transformative because the market power of this agency to change how buildings get built in New York State, this is huge. And I think to Sadie's point, those stretch goals actually become much more reasonable from a resource perspective if the Inflation Reduction Act is paying for the envelope work or paying for the electrification, especially with the boosters for affordable housing. So I just think it's like, this is, and the idea, the way the NYSERDA project money flows directly in, it's like linked, this is like the exemplifies good governance. Like it is a good government. Like this is like, I don't know, I think it's set an example for the country. That's what I'm saying. We were referred these books. These books were sent to folks in Los Angeles as a methodology to think about how we build buildings better in affordable housing in a way that government recognizes its role in bringing the market along. And I think it's just really well done. So this is great.
Yeah, and I would say even though we don't have our own direct capital in our SONYMA insured products, we should really look through our SONYMA lens with the same type of desire to get there.
That's interesting. One of the question is, and I think this is good on the data side and monitoring. You know, I was talking to folks that is a group that's working with the Rocky Mountain Institute and their advanced building collaboration, who said that buildings that are made more sustainable, including like noise reduction and other things, which have lower tenant turnover, you have asthma rates which are lower because of like, you know, passive house have zero, like they're actually looking at, you know, I think it was like 15% increase in net operating income that doesn't exist and is not currently being underwritten. So I think that's a SONYMA question ultimately when you're looking at the size of the mortgage and looking at how these projects cash flow and perform when they are made better for people living there, better on the environmental side, lower operating costs, and how it plays into this like overall more sustainable community and how it drives economic value for the projects and where they exist on the map. So it's great.
I have to jump out now though, so thank you.
All right, Sadie, thanks so much.
Great presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions for Samantha and Christina?
Yeah, actually, I had a more mundane kind of question about how do you do solar in New York City?
There's actually quite a lot of projects in New York City that implement solar. I think there's a really robust market here. When they do their feasibility study, which means when they take a look at the property, they're not just looking at what you would when you're maybe outside of an urban area, like which way do you position the panel, but they actually look at existing buildings and what they do a sun study to actually see what would happen when sun goes around in different times of year. And so there's a whole feasibility study, which we actually do require for any project as a baseline requirement in our guidelines in New York City to do a solar feasibility study because we actually really want to encourage properties in the city to install solar.
And do you look at other forms of alternative generation?
Yeah, so right now we currently encourage geothermal systems, which are a sort of more advanced heat pump system, extracting some energy from the ground. That actually is totally possible in New York City too. There's some really interesting nerdy things I can talk to anybody about that wants to hear that. We don't currently encourage any other sort of like wind or things like that because there's just some challenges around that, but between geothermal, on-site battery storage where it's allowed by code. We obviously can't control code. There's some restrictions there, but we do encourage it where it's allowed.
And what kind of building materials do you use?
So there's a section in our sustainability guidelines, as Ruth Ann mentioned, there's so much to get to, so sorry we couldn't cover everything, that does have some requirements around, no off-gassing, requiring FSC certified wood, and other things like that that sort of detail out as a baseline requirement.
Do you also require things or look at things like hempcrete or other?
So we got a request from some of our developers and more technical consultants to start considering the on-site carbon in materials. And so that's something we're going to take a look at and possibly include in some stretch goals, but we're probably a little ways away from including that stuff in baseline right now, just because of materiality cost and balancing.
So Joyce, sorry, no more mahogany or ipe from the rainforest. I know you have a preference for that personally, but
no, I like the rosewood.
Samantha's not going to let you. No more rosewood. All right. Any questions?
One thing on the solar, just real quick, is that there's a big thing on the community solar, and it's helpful, especially because obviously you don't have the rooftop capacity in New York City. The one thing is that there's still discrimination effectively in the market to low and moderate income people because you don't see community solar that goes above 50% LMI. But I think it's a place that the agency could think about using capital or looking at other ways to say, like, we can do community solar and we'll take the risk that low and moderate income people will pay their electric bills in the way that they always do and sort of help, because it's very expensive to do community solar, especially for full low and moderate income buildings. So.
certainly worth looking at, yeah, good to know. We've got the experts. Christy, thank you.
Thank you so
Samantha,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
your
very
time.
much.
Really
Thank you.
helpful. And thanks again for the PowerPoint, which was great,
Of
Jeff.
course, absolutely.
Very, very helpful. All right. Well, I think at this point we can move forward with Sunny May items, Diana, but you've got to. Oh, no, we've got to adjourn the last meeting before we start the new one. Okay, sorry. There being no further business for HFA, HTFC, and AHC, Diana, will please ask for motions and seconds to adjourn the meetings that Sadie just left. We won't get Sadie's vote.
Right, assuming the first and second previously
May I
entered
vote for
motions,
Sadie?
AKA, HTFC, and H supports, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned. Our next HFA, HFC meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, May 16th at 9 a.m.
All right, duly noted. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, B.
Excuse me.
And now we're going to open up our Sunny May meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Hi.
Could I have a word with you before we start, please?
Sure. Oh, you want to step up? Well, let me take my coffee, Wallace. And we're going to start, we'll be right back, and we'll start Sunny May.
Which book are we in now? You're still in the board book? No. Nope. No, that was the wrong one.
Good, Mike. How you doing?
Good.
No, that's just HTFC. Yeah,
Top right side.
top right.
Yeah, it should be in the top right side.
Ah, okay, see it. Nope, that's the sustainability guidelines.
Nope, the April 2023.
Oh, but right now, I'm in the middle of this. Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
To the left of that.
Trying to access it.
What are you looking for?
The board book.
It's the one on the top corner.
Top right.
Right, the very first one says April 2023 board book?
Right, but when I go there, all I get is the presentation.
No, what? Wait, go back. Just close it.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have trash you want me to take?
Click on the X, on the red X. So that's the April 23 board book, that should be.
That's the HFC, the
No.
HFA board.
Yeah, which one did you want?
Sunny May.
Oh, no, it's all together.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so when you go to Sunny May now, I mean, they're all, I mean, this is our first try at this. They're all kind of like together. So when,
I think I like the other way better.
With shoes in there, little
with the addition of HTFC.
difference, yeah, and I think
Because it's just,
Shelton
you
is
saw how quickly.
probably not
Yeah, we're
great,
gonna go
but
for some of
also
the same
not
its
how they
Which
sort of
effect from the
present
Sunny
it, but
May?
it is hard to
So like,
sort of figure out where, like, is it trending a little more towards him
you're
or a
gonna
little
be,
more towards what
the
we're
Sunny May
saying?
board members.
You know, I think he's a, I don't know how much he works for, he was mentioning the COO, but he's like a little more skittish and a little less, you know, sort of, yeah, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's part of his unsuccessfulness or if it's something more than that.
You know, I have kind of never had this opportunity. They used to be a separate subsidiary.
Right.
They met on a separate day. And the legislature opened into the HFA. When you add Sunny May, it's too much. So we're trying.
Okay.
Neighbors have viewed it as an occupied force.
Really?
Yeah. You know, it's really, and that's a real challenge.
In a way that, like, if they were just part of the city of New York,
How are you guys
it's still
doing?
different, but because they actually have their own
They expect it to work like a local government.
Yeah, right.
Which effectively does in many regards, but where it doesn't.
Oh, great, okay.
Interaction.
You're asking all the right questions.
The kind of democratic interaction between.
So
So I have some ideas on how to address that.
Get a little more.
One of them looks like she's
But
put a
I
meeting,
just wanna make sure
I've said
that
from
I
the start,
understand.
meeting space.
I remember when I started in law school.
It's just
Partner that I
And when they, you know, it's all
Totally
generalities, it's
Right.
like, what does this really mean?
And what do you think about that?
I ran
That's what, yeah, it's all like.
The other thing is, look, if the president lived on the island.
Do you think that'd be better? Because I wonder if in some ways, like, people don't want to. It's part of like on board.
Yeah, sure. It's accessibility, relatability.
All right, break is over.
I don't really.
Back to live action.
Kenneth, can I introduce you?
Finding some.
People in storage letting me get on the
I
bus.
mean, like, I guess I'm worried about it. But they wanted to have that bill, but even short
This is
I felt
This is a little complicated.
No, but somebody might move to.
Professor Mill can walk you through it.
Yeah,
She can show you the board materials.
I had the whole thing memorized.
Yeah, and she can show you the board materials and walk you through it. But thank you for coming. Now you see what she's doing when she's not teaching you. When she's not in the classroom.
Yes, fine.
Let's, ladies, gentlemen, friends, everybody, staff,
My tenure on the board, all of a sudden when I moved off.
guests.
They came at me like gangbusters. Oh, yeah.
We're going to get started with our SONYMA meeting. And
Rockefeller Institute, two of my students.
you've got to pull up in your board book to the sort of SONYMA section where our activities start for
And where would
today.
that be?
Well, they flow through the entire book.
They do.
So the first
When
item
we
will
get
be
to
the
the first item, I'll flag it for you and you can pull it out of the tabs.
Yep.
I mean, again, I recommend just using the tab section, right, when you look through this, so you don't have to go one page at a time.
I always do.
Good, good. Let me do my best to share a concern just expressed to me by Professor Ford when he wanted to have, we had a little sidebar conversation while you refreshed your coffees. And I think it's a very important point. And then if I don't say it right, well, I'll ask you to chime in. But Professor Ford, Member Ford was caught off guard by what to him was kind of, well, up to everybody, was an abrupt change in the meeting schedule. So, for example, while for David, many got on a later train, for Professor Ford, who has a complicated CUNY schedule at Medgar Evers and in other obligations of his life, it was an inconvenience that came up really at the last minute. And he expressed to me his frustration, his concern over that. So I just want to apologize, Wallace, on behalf of the group.
Let me to clarify.
Sure.
Okay, it's not just me. Okay, I think it's just a matter of organizational protocol, and that as members of the board, whether people have something to do or not, is not the point. I think the point is that there's proper notice and proper scheduling for scheduling, and we're given a schedule for the whole year for a specific time, and we set our calendars that way. If there's a change, there's a change. We have to be flexible with respect to that. But I do think that less than 48 hours notice is just not reasonable. And, particularly given the responsibilities that we have. And I would hope that we can have, I really would personally request, and hope on behalf of my other fellow board members, that we have some notice at least 3 or 4 business days ahead of time, because less than 48 hours notice is just not helpful.
Right.
Okay, and we do want to participate. We will participate. I'm here now, despite whatever else I might have to do, anybody else. Okay, but I want to be clear that this is not a personal request. This is on behalf of my fellow board members as well, who might be more compatible in some ways. I'm here to be compatible, but I'm also here to be professional, and I don't think that this was done in a professional fashion. I'd like to have that noted for the record, please.
Absolutely.
Can I just respond there for a second? I apologize for that. And it's our intent actually to keep the meeting the same block of time as to stay within the 9 to 11. So we weren't trying to make the meeting any longer. I apologize if now, because we didn't start at 10:30 and it's now 10:50, it will go longer. But the intent was, and I tried to say that on my email, was actually not to make the meeting any longer. It was just to flip the order so that we did one thing first and one second, because the HTFC, as you remember, or may recall from some of the other meetings, we didn't actually get to do any of the business because we ran out of time. So we tried to flip that one so we could make sure we got to those items and didn't have another rush. But I hear you.
Ruth Ann, yeah, thank you for that. But I'd still say, and I think it's a good point to say on behalf of all the directors, what a last minute change in the scheduling in this case of the flipping into meetings is inappropriate. And I apologize as chairman that happened, Wallace. And I say moving forward, should there need to be a change in the scheduling, of the meetings within that window of time you're describing, we should have to. Proper notice for everybody, even to comply, obviously with open meetings laws, several days, a week, whatever it can be ahead of time. So I think point very well taken, and I'm sorry to anybody, not just you, Wallace, for the inconvenience it may have caused.
In regard to the scheduling, I mean, I would love to be out of here at 11 o'clock. But the reality is, given the amount of work that there is to do, I think we might consider 12 o'clock as the cutoff.
Which is de facto, isn't it?
Well,
Really, most of the
guess
time?
what's happening
Yeah.
today?
No, but it's, scheduling it that way because I hate rushing through all of these items.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking for myself, as one board member, you actually gave me back an hour and a half of my time.
You could
Because you
sleep.
weren't,
Yeah,
right.
you gave all of us back an hour and a half of our time. I always block out 9 to 12. I have always blocked out 9 to 12, so now I just gained 9 to 10:30, which in my personal situation means I don't have to get up at 4:30 in the morning to
That's
get
because
here.
you're only on one board.
Well, even if I would argue that I just want to come back to this point, that even if you feel that this was beneficial, you shouldn't have learned about it at the last minute, right? Okay, I think that's the point, all right? And I think it's a very, very important point.
I agree with that.
Having made that point and helping everybody understand it, and I hope that Wallace's comments
for all
are,
of us?
pardon me?
Can you provide an hour and a half of sleep for
No,
all of us?
no, I don't want to be here till 12. But I do want the minutes to reflect the comments that I and Wallace have made about the abrupt change in the scheduling, and our best efforts to not let that happen again. Diana, let's take the roll so we can get started with Sunny May.
Okay, I will ask for a motion for the Sunny May board.
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
I will now ask for individual votes from each Sunny May board member.
What is that noise?
It's the Syracuse.
That's the,
Okay, Chairman,
aye.
No.
oh, no, I don't need to do it, okay.
No.
If there are no objections, I will accept the previous votes of Chairman Adams, Ms. Visnaskis, Mr. Olzak, Ms. Gonzalez, and Ms. Miller, all of whom voted to open up the earlier HFA HTFC meeting. Professor Ford?
Yes.
Aye, okay. Mr. Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Capel?
Aye.
Okay. I will ask for a motion for the Sunny May Mortgage Insurance Committee.
So moved.
I will now ask for individual votes for each mortgage insurance committee member.
Aye.
Mr. Olzak?
Aye for me.
Mr. Capel?
Aye.
Okay. I will ask for a motion for the Sunny May Audit Committee.
So moved.
I will now ask for individual votes for each Sunny May Audit Committee member.
Aye.
Mr. Olzak? Okay. Ms. Miller?
Aye.
I ask for a motion for Sunny May Governance Committee.
So moved.
Second.
I will now ask for individual votes from each Sunny May Governance Committee member.
Aye.
Mr. Olzak?
Aye.
Commissioner?
Aye.
And
Aye.
great.
Thank you very much, Diana. First item is the approval of the minutes of the Audit, Governance, and Mortgage Insurance Committee meetings and of the Sunny May board meetings that we had back in March. And if there are no corrections or comments from the directors, I will deem those minutes approved. Let me pause to see if there are any questions or comments about the minutes from our March meeting. Anybody? All right, good. There's one action item for our audit committee. It's a resolution approving the internal audit servicing bank audit of Key Bank. Khani Babayeva will present. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm asking for approval of our servicer audit that we performed.
Hanim, speak up.
Hanim, if you can speak and make sure, yeah,
Louder,
Mike has the
louder.
microphone there. I want to make sure Jesse, this is the kind of stuff Jesse cares about.
Okay.
Audits.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I'm asking for approval of our servicer audit that we performed. One of our servicers is Key Bank. It's a financially very sustainable big bank, and they are handling about 600 of our mortgage loans with a total portfolio around $33 million. And we picked 15 of that loans. We checked them. We realized that they are doing quite a good job about the servicing these packages from the content standpoint, from the documentation standpoint, recording of the payment information, so everything was in order. Meanwhile, there was an incident with that bank related to their data hacking. And similar to previous bank, they didn't have a protocol in place to inform us about this. So according to their investigation records, about 990 SONYMA existing and previous, like former loans, were affected by that hacking event. And they are, of course, hoping that it will not end up, not all this 990 loans will end up in some dark web or whatever. But based on the investigation results they have, this was their honest confession to auditors when we asked them about. But they admitted that they didn't have a protocol in place to refer this information to us timely.
But they do now.
Yeah, we mentioned to them like few legislative protocols that they like as a good government or like, oh, I'm sorry, not as good business practice, they should like inform us. At the same time, as an institution, I think that since it's a second case that we are looking for, we might think about some maybe enforcement mechanism to put in place. Other than that, we do not think that their activities about our loans are posing any risk to us.
No, it's more their system, even up to report a breach like that to us, right?
Yes.
That's what we need to fix.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Khanim on the servicing bank report or audit? I'll note that, Khanim and her team have 6 this spring, at least, I'm sure more than 6, but different internal audits that are ongoing, not all obviously for Sunny May. And thank you for the summary that I got from you the other day of those that are complete, those that are in progress, those that are planned, haven't happened yet. There's, as everybody knows, a constant cycle of internal. It's a never-ending cycle of internal audit on all the various agencies in the umbrella of HCR. So, Khanim, thank you so much. Next question, James. Yeah.
What was the degree of the breach? And then also, who's actually doing the internal investigation? Is the FBI involved, or they're doing their own internal investigation?
So based on exposure of the data exposure, yeah, it was called minimal. Yes. So unfortunately, that's minimal for us, yeah, because we have 500 loans with them, and 900, including former and existing, were hacked. Yeah. So for us, it doesn't look minimal, and that's why I made a statement to the bank that though you call it minimal and you did not consider informing us, but FBI was informed timely, which was not like with the experience of the previous bank. This bank did a great job in informing all the authorities about the incident, and they hired a third-party investigator that did an investigation and reported to all these authorities the results. Still, when bank assessed, the impact and the exposure, in their mind, it's minimal.
What was the timeline of the breach itself?
Timeline, it was in May of 2021. So it was like, and they think it was just for a few days. And they caught it. They caught the fact of hacking on time, and that's why they think that they minimized the effect of it.
So they were hacked in 2021.
Right.
They notified us in 2023.
They didn't notify us
at all,
and we pushed them to tell us about this.
Did they close the back door on the programs?
No, they are actually actively servicing our loans right now. They are not actively originating though.
Thanks. This is KeyBank, right?
KeyBank.
So, may I ask a question? Be in Syracuse? Is there a way to ensure that our vendors inform us to require this information be sent to us in real time versus waiting, to kind of, drag it out of our vendors? Is this something that needs to be written into our contracts? That's one question. And the other one is, are we keeping up with our own internal cybersecurity needs with regards to our vendors? And then the third question is, in case something did happen, would there be any liability to the board and to the agency that we're just not cognizant of right now?
Three really good questions. Let's start with.
I can answer to first two. The third one is more of a legal question. That's why it will be hard for me to address it. But first two, yes. So I worked for the city controller 6 years before joining this agency. And the practice of handling this cybersecurity risk was that Department of Law issued a recommendation for all city agencies to sign up an MOU, like a memorandum of understanding between the city agencies and all their vendors and or other counterparties with which they have a data exchange. So, and it was mutual. So if a city agency is being hacked, they should inform their vendor and vice versa. Vendor is being hacked, they are informing city agency. So it was a mutual memorandum of understanding that was drafted by law department and used by the city agencies across the New York City. So this was my experience in handling this particular risk. And of course, while we are renewing our contracts, we might include it as a part of general contract. But before that, we can, I think we can have a MOU or some amendment.
Right.
In your memo, Hanim, it says that the bank, approximately 22 days after being notified by OSC of the breach, began notifying affected clients. They didn't notify us.
No, they informed our SONYMA clients personally. So they sent them the letters saying that your data potentially was hacked and you have the tools to monitor that and et cetera, et cetera. But they never did this in parallel with informing us.
So they told so what they are servicing mortgage loans that we purchased. They told the borrowers for our loans.
Right.
They just didn't tell us.
Right.
Okay.
And the way that we'll rectify that is what, please? The way that we can rectify it, I heard you mention the MOU that the city uses.
Yeah, we can use the similar practice. Maybe we can have an amendment.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just saying, I don't understand maybe. Why wouldn't we just do that?
Because there is several methods of doing this, and I think that the decision making, like about the tool, will be laid with the legal department.
So yeah, let's bring it back to the procurement. There's an agreement, obviously, with the mortgage servicer, in this case, Key Bank, and I think B was asking this question. If there isn't a requirement in our agreement with them now that they notify us in a timely manner, just like they notify the borrowers, could we go to them and say, hey, we want, could we add this to the agreement? Could we modify the agreement?
Yeah, I think that language is in the agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe they failed to.
And I just think it's one of those things where they focused on the borrowers and not on the seller of the product, on us. But that is something that we need to enforce.
Okay,
So what happens if they're in breach of the agreement? I mean, what are the enforcement requirements?
Well, we have the ability to
Enforcement
get a new servicer,
To transfer the loan.
to transfer the loans. So we have a master servicer, M&T,
Right.
that we would transfer the loans to, that they service.
And they would assume more liability.
Correct.
Because like the borrowers, they have a 48-hour obligation once they know about a breach to notify the bank. Otherwise, they eat any losses. So the bank, in this case, should be able to do the same.
I mean, given that Key Bank is a major bank, and this was a sizable number of loans that were involved, were there any penalties?
As a previous bank, they consider some claim payments. So their insurance cost went up, and they prepared the reserves for claim payments. It's a normal practice, as any bank can have this problem. There is a special steps that they perform. So they are financially ready to meet that penalties.
No, I understand that a breach could happen at any bank, but what I'm saying is the notification to us. and whether we provide any penalties or enforce any penalties because of the lack of notification, timely notification.
Since we don't pay them, banks service the loans under our program, and they get paid through a credit against their franchise taxes. When we are dissatisfied with the performance of a servicing bank, we transfer the servicing.
So can I, Jason, I'm sorry, B had 3 questions on the table that I don't want to forget. I think that the first one you've addressed. There's a broader question. I'm going to try to come back and summarize B, and then I hope you'll help me out. But I think the bigger question here is, this happened, whether because they were required to do something and they just failed to do it, but moving forward, what are we going to do as an agency so that it doesn't happen again? And maybe, Ruth Ann, the staff could come back and report at our May meeting on May 20th in a few weeks about whatever actions you think are appropriate. Is this enough of a problem that we should move these loans back to M&T? Or do we put in some provision with a penalty moving forward? They might not like that choice, but that's the point, right? But, how do we respond to what happened? And I think, my feeling is the biggest problem is their failure to report this. I mean, breaches happen. They told as they had to, right? They reported it to the borrowers, but not to us. And that's a problem. And I think you get a feeling from these questions that that's a problem. So could we just ask that the team look at this and come back and report back to us next? I mean, Honeyman is in charge of audit here. She doesn't penalize, it's not her. I don't want to put it.
I know, but what I'm concerned about is the banking community is in its way a small community. And how aware of other banks are that, they had this breach and they didn't report it, and do other banks now feel we don't have to report so quickly either?
I think
it's happened all the time. Sad to say.
I think at least a general communication to all our servicing banks to make sure that they understand that this has been uncovered as part of one of our investigations, and we want to remind every bank that these are their responsibilities. It's something that should go out.
Right, and that we reserve the right to move, our business elsewhere should they fail to do this.
I think this sheds light on a larger problem. Not being a expert with respect to IT matters, but I think we all have been aware of the recent news where just a 21-year-old Air Force National Guard person can go into all. It would seem to me that anybody with whom this multi-billion-dollar entity comes in contact should be held to that same standard. If they have an issue, whether it's a law firm, investment banking firm, whatever it might be, that if they encounter that, they need to let us know. Right. We have a lot of exposure here.
Yeah, very good.
I think it should just be, across the board.
It's enforceable where we have relationships like this, and there's a procurement and a contract and an agreement.
Absolutely.
And there's usually, because we're the state of New York, an out where we can say for, X number of vague reasons, bye-bye. Good state procurement does that. I want to go back, B, what have we not answered? I know this probably has not been satisfactory, but we've tried to come back to your questions.
Well, I think the important part is that we have a very important conversation to have around our own security issues and our preparedness in case of cyber. And it's a reminder, right, that we need to stay on top of this. And then ultimately, what are the liability implications to the agency if something should go wrong? I mean, I guess I'm just thinking, this is one example of what can go very wrong. And so how are we being proactive around these issues?
Good. Ruth Ann, do you want to take that?
I mean, we can certainly have Tom Miller, who runs all of our IT department, come and talk about our security stuff. Obviously, we operate sort of under the state umbrella for all of that. But he could come certainly to a future meeting and just talk about what we do and our preparedness plans and our response plans and that type of thing.
I think that would be good. I see B nodding. It's not unlike the presentation we had today on design standards and sustainability. So we have a better awareness of what the agencies are doing. And to that, at the larger, I think, if I may, kind of question from Wallace is, as a set of agencies with lots of exposure and lots of relationships, again, not for today, but for that discussion, what are we doing to make sure that in our agreements, our contracts, and our policies,
we're protecting ourselves, that we should always be immediately informed, that there's recourse, that we could respond on behalf of the state and the people we serve if we're the victims of such a habit, by directly or by a third party through, someone like a bank, right? How do we, it's a bigger strategic question for the agencies, right?
But it was also the legal question that I think B raised about liability. And what our liability is as board members.
Well, as board members, the boards are covered by our existing agency has a policy of insurance against all the board members. That's in addition to the state's indemnification. So board members are covered under two, regular indemnification.
And D&O policy.
And we have a D&O policy specifically applicable to the board members.
So can we, for our May meeting, at least have some kind of report back as to, from the council, from the commissioner's office, however it might work, as to how we can implement this, because, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
I think is the point, right? In terms of exposure.
Right.
And we have to have something in place soon.
Yeah.
Because, I think the point is clear.
Yep. We'll do that for the May meeting. I think we all owe a debt of gratitude for Hadim, who discovered this because she was doing the audit of the servicing agreement, right? And so thank you, Hadim, for the report, for the discovery, for sharing this news, which has prompted a very important discussion.
Thank you for your constancy.
All right.
I think the May meeting's going to be a long one.
Yeah, book yourself till 12 o'clock, Joyce. Okay.
So now?
Let's, yes.
Now before the audit committee is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Now, there's one item left before the governance committee this morning. It's approval and review of various contracts monitored by the Facilities and Administration Department. It's a consent item, so if there are no questions on any of it, Diane, let's make it real.
Okay. Now before the Sunny May Governance Committee is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Terrific. We've got two action items for Sunny May that are consent items. One is a resolution approving the bond sale report for the period from November 1st, 2022 through January 31st, 2023. Said report's in the materials. And likewise, there's an approval of the annual investment report, 10/31/22, or it's the same period of time. Actually, no, it's 1 month later, although the notes don't show it. It's 10/31 through. It commenced 10/31.
Right.
I'm thinking it probably goes to February 28th, but anyway, it's not in my notes. So let's, and I just want to comment that in our earlier meeting, Director McIntyre noticed a typo, we think, in the reporting of the interest rate in the investment report, right? We picked that up earlier, so let's fix that now. So now, let's make it happen.
Okay.
Diana, we'll put those reports to rest.
Any questions, no questions? Now before the Sunny May Board are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with these two items. Assuming the first and second previously reported, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolution is adopted.
All right. We've got Sunny May informational items, a few of these to take care of. One is a review of agency's first quarter procurement report for the period commencing November 1, 2022, ending January 31st, a couple months ago, 2023. We always have our current agency procurement contracts in the lobbying restricted period, so that we're aware of that. There is the quarterly report we get on our swaps, and the MIC, or Mortgage Insurance Committee Activity Report for the month of March. Again, all of that in the materials. Any questions on any of those reports? We will now move to approval of the Sunny May projects on the agenda. This is the good stuff. These are all found in the board books and are listed as items 9, 10, 11A, and 12A, if you're using tabs like I do to move through this big, heavy book. And so we start with number 9, of course. Let's go to number 9. This is a resolution of Sunny May Mortgages Committee and of Sunny May Board recommending approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $24,550,000 CPC permanent first mortgage loan for a project in Rochester, which is the 36 Main Street project, Monroe County. Mike's here at the table to walk us through it. Again, number 9.
This project comprises
MIF insurance of a $24,550,000 CPC loan for the historic conversion of the executive building on 36 Main Street in Rochester. It's a long vacant office building into 130 workforce housing units and 62,600 square feet of commercial space. Projected rents will range from 63% to 119% of the Rochester AMI. The project will receive a 485A real estate tax abatement and $10.5 million in federal historic tax credits. The development entity is controlled by Samuel Savarino, an experienced Buffalo-based developer who specializes in historic conversions. In addition to the $10.5 million in historic tax credits, there's $9.9 million in developer equity. This will be the third loan insured by the MIF for entities controlled by Savarino, comprising total exposure of $59 million. The insured loan amount is $188,500 per unit, which equals 50% of the project's total development cost of $378,000 per unit. The project will break even with a pro forma 27% vacancy and collection loss for the residential units, a 57% increase in operating expenses, or with 50% of the commercial space vacant.
And this is 36 Main Street, so it's downtown Rochester.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mike on this project?
I just have one
Comments?
comment on this and the others, actually, is to repeat my suggestion that we include a link to Google Map.
Right, right.
very easy
Sorry
to do.
about that.
We had that last month. What happened?
There's a map here, but there's no link.
We will.
Yeah.
Mike, what is the 482A real estate abatement in Rochester mean?
It's actually, it's a state program. It's an as-of-right tax abatement for converting commercial property into residential property.
It's not in New York City, but it's everywhere else in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's sort of like J51 was in New York.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions for Mike on this? Let's make it happen, Diane.
Okay. Now before Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Sunny Mae Board are resolutions that were transmitted to next week's item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to go to number 10, resolution Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee, and the Sunny Mae Board recommending and approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $14,172,313 LIFT permanent force mortgage loan for the Christopher Project in New York. And again, Mike's going to walk us through this very interesting and compelling project.
It is. And we don't do a lot of business with LIFT, so this is good to see. It involves the conversion of a 207-unit supportive housing project, including 40 SROs. 167 of the units are restricted to households with incomes up to 60% of the AMI. And there's a Section 8 HAP contract covering 98 of these units. The project is heavily subsidized. There's an existing $16.6 million HDC subordinate loan, a $5.5 million HHAC subordinate loan, and a full New York City 420C real estate tax abatement. The project was originally acquired by Breaking Ground back in 2001, and they've owned and operated it ever since. The 40 SRO units will be managed by a not-for-profit called Good Shepherd Services.
Sure. Was Brenda Rosen at Breaking Ground in 2001? It's a long time ago.
That's a long time.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, these are really good partners, right?
Yeah. Yes. And this will be the fourth loan that we've insured for entities controlled by Breaking Ground with total exposure of $65 million. The insured loan amount is $68,500 per unit, which equals 39% of the project's total development cost of $175,000 per unit. And the project will break even with a 12% pro forma vacancy rate or a 10% increase in operating expenses.
It's in Chelsea, right?
Yes, it's on West 24th Street.
And there are tenants in the building now?
Oh, yes.
It's fully occupied. So
Fully
what happens during the renovation?
I think they'll do it with tenants in place.
Apartment by apartment?
Yeah.
Good. Questions for Mike about this project in Chelsea? And the LIFT program is money from NICERS? Is that why it says it in the?
Oh, actually, yes, well, they're going to, LIFT is going to sell the loan to NICERS. With our insurance.
I was going to say, with it, of course. Very good. Questions for Mike? If not, Diana, let's do it.
Okay, now before Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Sunny Mae Board are resolutions of a transfer this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
Thank you, Diana. We've got 11A, resolution of the Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $3,166,541 CPC permanent first mortgage loan for 950 Broadway, which is a project in Buffalo, which of course is in Erie County. Mike, tell us about this.
This project comprises the historic readaptation of a commercial building into 28 low-income units and 12,000 square feet of retail space. And it's a heavily subsidized project. And in addition to the $3.2 million CPC loan, there's a $2.1 million HCR participating loan program small business loan, a small building loan, pardon me. There's $1.1 million ESDC Better Buffalo grant. There's $2.9 million in federal historic tax credits and a 10-year 440A real estate tax abatement with the city of Buffalo.
Even National Grid is stepping up with
Yeah.
$100,000.
The loan amount, the insured loan amount is $113,000 per unit, which equals 24% of the project's total development cost of $463,000 per unit. The project would break even with a pro forma 13% vacancy loss, a 25% increase in operating expenses, or 30% of the commercial space vacant.
The existing building, I just stumbled across that picture. It's quite a structure. All right. Any questions for Mike on this project at 950 Broadway, downtown Buffalo? If not, Dinah, let's do it.
Okay, now before Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Sunny Mae Board are resolutions that were transferred from this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
Terrific. We're going to do 12A, which brings us, really across the state from downtown Buffalo to the Bronx. Resolution of the Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Sunny Mae Board recommending and approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $12,140,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan for the St. Anselm Apartments. And this is a project in the Bronx that Mike will walk us through.
So this project comprises the construction of 126 all low-income units, including 63 supportive housing units. It's a heavily subsidized project. There's a $12.6 million HFA supportive housing opportunity program loan. There's a $10.1 million HFA new construction program loan. There's $39.2 million in federal low-income housing tax credits. And the project will receive $1.1 million a year in ESHI rent subsidies for the supportive housing units. It's being developed by a subsidiary of the New York City Archdiocese. And it's being developed on a former parking lot adjacent to St. Anselm's Church. And the ESHI award will be administered by the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Housing. The insured loan amount is $96,350 per unit, which equals 14% of the project's total development cost of $705,000 per unit. And the project will break even with a pro forma 12% vacancy loss or a 16% increase in operating expenses.
And Mike, is it just math or is it seems too perfect? Exactly half of the units, 63 are ESHI units, right, of the 126. Set up that way?
I think so.
What is an ESHI rent subsidy?
I mean, I'm sorry, Joyce?
What is an ESHI rent subsidy?
Empire State.
Empire State
okay.
Supportive Housing Initiative.
Okay.
It's a subsidy because it's supportive housing, but it's, if you look at, it's the studios and 1 and 2 bedrooms and 63 of them. I just looked at the math and it's exactly half the units. And I'm wondering, is that a requirement or?
So we require you to have at least 30%, and then we can go up to 60, we can go a little higher depending sort of on the populations, but in order for us, we have an overall commitment to do about 1,400 a year over the 5 years of this housing plan. So in order to do that and given our limited resources, we really need projects to have at least kind of like half their units as supportive, or else we'll never be able to build that many.
Right. And maybe it's also because this is quite a mission-driven project, right?
Well, and it's an economy of scale, right? They also bring on, you know, caseworkers and a manager for the caseworkers and a front desk person, and so all of that is, you know, there's economies of scale, so we have scale.
Right, the support, because, right, obviously this is a lot of support services for the residents. Great, I'm sorry to interrupt with that, but Mike, other questions for Mike on this project in the Bronx? It's Catholic Charities in the Archdiocese, and Safe Haven will do the services, right? That's the, yeah.
Are we back to the parking lot?
Pardon me?
Parking lot.
It's the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's the parking lot of the church.
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, pressed for sites, right, across the city of New York and elsewhere.
It's a good
You gotta
use.
get creative.
It's includes the building spaces.
It's valuable real estate, right?
And no one's going to church.
And someday we may have the church also.
Well,
We have had some churches.
it happens.
It has happened.
Yep. But, and, you know, it's an important, the diocese, you know, has had historically a lot of
Important
property.
community facility.
Any other questions for Mike or observations? This also has a, obviously, real estate tax, this 420C tax abatement. I'm always looking, how are they gonna pay the taxes? They're not paying the taxes. Let's do it.
Okay, now before SONYMA Mortgage Insurance Committee and the SONYMA Board are resolutions that were transferred to this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolution is adopted.
Well, now we can go from the Bronx to East Northport, somewhere near Huntington, I think, Suffolk County, out to James and Dave's territory here. Resolution of SONYMA Mortgage Insurance Committee and the SONYMA Board recommending approving 100% mortgage insurance on an $18,350,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan for Matinacock Court in Elmwood, or at Elmwood and Pulaski Roads in East Northport, sort of near Huntington, Suffolk County. Mike?
So this project comprises the construction of 146 all low-income units, of which 145 will be limited equity co-ops. The monthly maintenance will be set equal to tax credit rents, and the purchase price of an apartment will be equal to 1 month's maintenance. This is a heavily subsidized project. There's a $22.8 million HFA new construction program loan, a $5.8 million HFA new construction homeownership program loan, $3.6 million Suffolk County Housing Opportunity Grant. There's $33.3 million in federal low-income tax credits and $3.6 million in state low-income housing tax credits. And there's a 50-year pilot with the town of Huntington, which is unusual. We usually don't see pilots running more than 30 years.
Yeah.
Right. Which is problematic if it's 30 because it's a 40-year more.
40-year loan.
Right. And here it's a 50-year pilot.
You got more than you need.
Right. The project is being developed by the DNF Group, which was founded in 2004. The insured loan amount is $125,700 per unit, which equals 19% of the project's total development cost of $675,500 per unit. And this will be the 8th loan we've insured for entities controlled by DNF, with total exposure of $57.6 million.
Good project. Questions for Mike on this project in Huntington? How many units? It's big, right?
It's big.
Yeah.
Just an observation, this is a poster child for housing dysfunction on Long Island, this project.
You mean the history of it?
45 years.
How many?
45
Yeah,
years.
you know what, when we looked at it earlier for HFA, that's what Sadie said.
Yeah, we've been tenacious though. We got.
Yeah, it's not a child anymore.
No.
Wow.
And this is
So
the same fight that's brewing in central New York around affordable housing.
That's why we don't have a.
Yeah, coming back to this project, another way, I guess we could listen to your comment in another light, Dave, and say, well, after all these many years, good thing that the team here has finally gotten this project together and over the goal line, yeah.
And also the local politics have shifted.
Yeah, no, this is a lot of affordable housing in
It's
Huntington.
a step in the right direction, but it's just, 45 years to create 100 and some odd housing units. That's why we have a crisis on Long Island.
Right.
Hopefully this is the first of many.
Right.
And they're subsidizing the sewage. Because they received the funding for the sewage a couple years ago. They never applied it. So they're applying it now, which makes it feasible.
Right. Okay, great. Diana?
Great. Now before Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Sunny Mae Board are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the Board. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion's been carried and resolutions adopted.
Diana, thank you. Thanks, everyone. There being no further business for the Sunny Mae Board today, Diana is going to ask for motions and seconds to adjourn our meeting. And she'll tell us when the next one's coming up.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sure.
Before we adjourn, I was looking at the minutes, and there's two items that we discussed at the March meeting. And this has to do with the continuing concern that I know I've expressed with respect to MWBE engagement and participation. And it was mentioned at that time that Empire State Development personnel would be here at the April meeting to explain processes and procedures and parameters and what have you. Obviously, they're not here. And I would like to ask again that they are present for the May meeting because I don't want suggestions from the board to go, suggestions from the board, the minutes are with suggestions from the board go to die. And so it's a real suggestion and really it's just critically important and it doesn't get any less important as we go forward.
Right.
Professor, let me just address that one because you're absolutely right. So we were planning to get them here for this meeting and we tried and they are busy they could. So they asked us if they could push it back we could hold them up to the May meeting. And so we said, so we really did try to get them to come.
If someone had mentioned that, I wouldn't be saying it.
No, it's okay.
Right.
I mean.
Well, no, but I'm saying, if we would be given notice of just that fact, that would have been helpful.
Yeah.
And just the parameters regarding the financing of agency projects generally was another point that was raised. And I don't know in what format those parameters are, but it's something that I would like to see, and I'm sure my colleagues on the board would like to see.
Right. Was that the sustainability? I thought that was a sustainability presentation.
That was part of it.
Yeah.
What is there? Can you help? I don't remember. Forgive me. Well, so say it again in terms of what would be helpful. What information would be helpful around financial? When you say financial parameters,
was literally just what are the parameters for getting if I don't know anything, and I'm a community organizer, I'm a developer, and wanting to do some work, and you said, oh, well, you work with Sunny Mae.
Right.
Then what?
What's available?
Well,
and what are the amounts? And what's available? What are the tools?
What's the basic parameters? This is not for you, or yes, this is actually in your sweet spot, whatever it might be.
And one of the things that we noticed was that 69% of the loans were not going to MWBE projects. Only 31% were actually being picked up by it. So we were trying to figure out from the financial side of it, where do we start so that moving forward, we have a starting point to where we're actually showing that we've been effective in doing something over time from now.
Right.
And we were supposed to have financials, which were delayed. So we pushed it to this meeting that we were supposed to take a look at and have available.
so sorry, say again, we'll look at the financials in May, but if there's something specific you want us to address as it relates to the financials?
Well, I
Do you
thought
want to see,
that-
do you want to see the trend line of MWBE spend?
Right.
Would that be helpful, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
do that?
Because we want to know where we're starting.
Right, what's the bait? Like, where are we today? Right. Yeah.
And then, oh, sorry.
No, that's not in the financials.
Right, that's the
That is a
procurement.
separate
In the,
report, but we can do it.
MWBE.
NWB.
Yeah.
When do we normally do the MWBE report?
January?
Goal plan to report in December and we submit to ESD in January.
But we can look back, we can look at what we have to date and what we submitted to ESD in January. So, because January would be good, that's like a starting point.
That's fine.
It's fine, but I guess I would, with all due respect, is that to say that we were about to adjourn the meeting without these matters being addressed, and hopefully going forward, that will not be the case.
Can I go back to the thing you asked before? So I just got you on the sort of trend line of MWBE. I want to make sure we're responsive to the parameters thing. So you're asking for us to have someone come talk through if
The SONYMA program.
someone wants to approach the agency for mortgage insurance, sort of how they do that.
Yes, that would be a good start.
Maybe the development directors. Okay, we'll get that.
Yeah.
And Sunny May, I guess, single family.
Yeah, MIF, right, MIF and single family. And, I think that important, Wallace may not be saying this, but I know I feel it sometimes. The more we know about how the programs work, the more we can be advocates and champions for them. Like,
Yeah.
and the people that we meet, the folks we talk to, say, what's going on at Sunny May? Hey, here's what we can do to help you. Here's how we're helping communities across the state.
We had helped arrange for representatives, I'm sure you would know, from the agency to go out to Queens College. I think that was in February, during Black History Month, and make a presentation with respect to how generational wealth comes from ownership. So, and we'll be glad to. That's part of what I intend to do, but we need to know what we're talking about, quite frankly, in more detail than what we know right now.
Great. That's a good assignment. Right. All right. Anything else? Good. Let's adjourn. Diana?
Assuming the first and second previously entered for Sunny May, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Our next Sunny May board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 16th. And I guess we'll get back to you because we're going to talk how things work today, just in terms of doing the HTFC first. I think
whatever we do, what we need, the point made earlier is consistency so people can plan and everybody knows what's going on.
So we don't know the time.
All right?
No, we have the time, May 16th at 9 a.m.
Well, but I think if we're
Well,
going to do the schedule.
if we do Sunny May later, then
we'll
we
do
say Sunny May
later,
10.
we probably will start Sunny May at 10:30.
Yeah, and we'll let them know ahead of time.
Yeah,
We
but
won't
I
let you
think-
know a day before.
I think
So
it's,
let us know now.
Absolutely. We don't know exactly, depending on the length of the agenda.
Correct.
We'll be able to tell when Sunny May is about to start, so we will let you know ahead of time.
Right, but I think,
well
I
ahead of
think
time.
it's fair to say that for
Assume
Sunny May,
10.
we're not going to be starting with Sunny May at 9.
Not 9.
Today, we had about 20 items on the HTFC
And they had to
board,
keep
and that,
going.
which the last meeting, we were unable to do any of theirs. So I think that was really helpful for the
great shit.
HTFC board members to really get a chance to sort
Okay,
of talk
so
about this
can we
one.
say
How does one? keep track
Assume
of
10.
these
1 week's
on
At
notice?
least a week ahead of time.
Yeah,
Okay.
but probably,
5 business
What the
days.
initials stand for?
I
How do
think
you
Tuesday
define
is the
a
time
week?
before
5 business
10
5
o'clock.
business days.
How's
I'll
that?
give you 5 business days.
I think it's,
Maybe 10.
let's assume 10.
Well, just like looking at
We'll
this, for
confirm
example.
regardless.
Oh, and
Yeah,
Do your
All right.
presentation,
and for example, I asked questions about Ishai.
and you bring it before